It's closer, so she won't yell at me.
I got this turned on. There it is. Now it's on. Disconnect. Okay, are we ready, board? Right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the regular HARC meeting of February 18th, 2026.
Somebody has sound on their device, which is causing that reverb.
She's working.
Okay, oh, great.
It is a hybrid meeting at Rebecca Hall. Before we begin, just a reminder, the purpose of HARC is to preserve, maintain, and enhance. Could mean add to the historic character, scale, architecture, integrity, and cultural resources of the town and the Telluride Historic Landmark. Present from staff are David, Piper, Kristen, Darren, and is anybody else online?
Sherry's online.
And Sherry's online, of course, welcome. So we'll do the roll call, which Sherry can call. Actually, let's start with the roll call and Sherry, just say present, and we'll come down the line as the normal, at least the normal seating.
All right, Sherry present.
Welcome.
Stacy's here. Matt.
Mark.
Bob Mather.
Andrew Williamson.
Elita Mlodenova.
And thanks for coming out on this snowy night. Do we have a motion for approval of the minutes from our January 21st meeting?
I do, and I have a correction. On page 6, this is the 566 West Columbia. Condition number 7, excuse me. It says, sorry, eliminate the rear deck per HR number 31C. That should be HR 13C. I listened to the video, I listened to the YouTube, and we talked about it for like a half an hour. So it's just a typo. It's no big deal.
Okay.
So I would move to approve the HARC minutes dated 1/21/2026 as corrected.
We have a second?
I will second.
Okay, Sherry?
I think I'm not supposed to vote on the minutes. Is that right?
Sorry. You will be voting soon.
Stacy, yes. Matt, yes.
Mark, yes.
Bob, yes.
Andrew, yes.
Very good. And do we have any public comment on non-agenda items tonight? Looking at the list of people out there. If you want to make a comment on a non-agenda item, please raise your hand electronically. And don't see anybody. So we'll go ahead with the first public hearing item. And do we have a motion for continuance somebody would like to make?
Mark, did you want to do staff announcements?
Oh, my God. Absolutely. What's new?
Sure. So Darren and I had the pleasure of attending Saving Places, the conference last week, from Wednesday to Thursday. And it was just wonderful. We in person had our incoming new senior historic preservation planner. So Darren had the opportunity to meet him prior to him coming on board on March 2nd. And I don't know if you want to share anything from that event. Otherwise, we learned a lot, engaged with a lot of important people, including grant funders, our colleagues at a number of the state agencies, and it was very beneficial to our staff team to attend. Okay, great.
So who's who of preservation? I listened to 3 sessions.
Yes,
I missed
excellent.
the one I wanted to see on Crested Butte.
Oh,
And I asked Darren, she was driving home because of the snow. You didn't see it either.
I was not able to attend that one. I do have a few sessions I want to listen to as recordings post, and that would be one as
Well,
well.
if you guys end up going back and looking at anything and see something significant on Crested Butte and it's strategic planning, if you'd like to make it, we can make a carve out for 15 minutes. If there's lessons learned from Crested Butte,
Perfect.
it'd be good, but
Perfect.
I'm not sure there's anything we don't know.
Sure. And if HARC would like to let us know, we would be happy to share sort of a 5-minute bulleted list of things we learned at the conference that might be relevant to you during our strategic planning retreat. And that is my next staff announcement. So let me know if we'd like that, and we can certainly do that. We'd be pleased. But the next announcement is a reminder, March 4th from 8:30 to 11:30. thank you, Mark, for organizing the Telluride Science and Innovation Center for our annual HARC retreat, and delighted to report that Michael Owen will be able to join us. That will be his first week here in Telluride from the 2nd through the 5th. And then he will be virtual back and forth, remote part of the time for the next couple of months after that week. And then he'll be here full time, but you'll get to meet him in person, which will be wonderful for everyone. So I think those are the key announcements. Yep.
Well, we'll get an agenda out, but it'll be very similar to last year.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one question. How do we do this better? That's the question,
Mhm.
but we'll frame it as we have in the past, some bullet items. I'll put them together. We'll get an agenda.
I wanted to ask, the State Historic Fund grants
Yes.
are due in April and they have a whole new format. Did you get to go sit in a session about that?
I have actually, I've also met personally with the grant funders and gone over our proposal. So definitely getting in for that grant round and actually working to finish up a small application for the round for the CLG grant. So doing both
Good.
for sure.
Good.
Yeah. Thank you.
I review them for them
Yes.
and they, it's all new
Yes.
format.
Mhm.
Gotta take a class to learn how to do it again.
Thank you so much for checking in about that. It's definitely a high priority.
Okay, well, can we move on then? Okay, so on the first public hearing item, do we have a motion to continue?
I can do that if you want.
Okay.
Everything's redlined here. I move to continue without discussion the Fulton residents address to be determined without discussion to the March 18th to 2026 meeting, HARC meeting.
Matt will second. Stacy, yes. Matt, yes.
Yes?
Oh, Bob, yes, sorry.
Andrew, yes.
Okay. So we'll go on to the second item, which is the 116 East Columbia remodel edition continuation from December 17th and a continuation out this November 19th meeting. It's consideration and application for a small scale demo of a non-rated THS secondary structure inside the THLD per land use code 7203833B6.B and an insubstantial scale addition to existing buildings, which will increase the structure floor area by less than 10%. 7203833B4 and an insubstantial scale alteration of non-designated, non-rated structure that does not increase the floor area per land use code 7203833D5. Legal description: east 25 feet of lots 2, 4, 6, and 8, block 7, 116 East Columbia is the address. It's in the historic residential zone district. Owner is Drift Mine LLC and AZLL. Applicant Shift Architects, Chris Papar, and staff member Darren. Oh, Kristen's doing this one. Okay, go ahead, Kristen.
Sure. Did you want to go over the public process slide, Mark,
Yeah,
before I
and
flip
just
it?
remind everybody of the 7 steps of our process. I do see some public online now, so hopefully they're viewing it. We start with the HARC chair introducing the project, then staff gives the presentation and answers our questions. The applicant then gives their presentation and answers HARC questions. We ask for 30 minutes or less of presentation. The public is then invited to make comments and we ask for 3 minutes or less, and there's no dialogue permitted in our rules between the board and the public, but this board does listen. So thank you for any comments. The applicant may then address any comments and make a rebuttal. And public comment ends and HARC members deliberate. Hopefully they make a decision.
Excellent.
Okay,
Thank you,
so-
Mark.
with that, Kristen.
Great. So these are just the standards for review for the decision-making body, which we put on the slide at the beginning of every meeting. So 116 Columbia. So for these presentations and reviews, the way we did them this time is I reviewed certain sections and certain aspects of the project versus certain parts of the design guidelines and other review criteria. And our consultant, John Southard, historic preservation consultant with Logan Simpson, reviewed very specific other aspects of the project, and then they were combined. So all 3 presentations this evening will have a little bit of back and forth. I'll be covering most of the presentation and then the parts that John reviewed, he will step in and provide his insights, guidance, and direction to the board. So we just went over the basics for this project. You know where it is. So the project is proposing a demolition of a non-contributing without qualifications primary structure, a demolition of a non-contributing without qualifications accessory structure, construction of a new 1,722 square foot excluding basement level primary structure, and construction of a new 411.54 square foot accessory structure. Project review to date, I'll just go over this very briefly. Again, continued without discussion in December, then heard and continued to this meeting. And so here we are today. The proposed project has been significantly modified from the previous proposal reviewed by HARC in December. The modified project is now to demo the existing primary and accessory structures and to construct a single-family dwelling and accessory garage compliant with the building code, land use code, and design guidelines while eliminating the existing encroachments into the town right-of-way to address public works concerns. So the applicant is bringing their new proposal forward to HARC for preliminary consideration. And based on initial review of the extensively modified submittal, staff would recommend to HARC that you conduct your initial review this evening and then consider continuing with conditions to March or April once we've gone through the revised project. And so I will start here. First, the proposed demolition. So for demolitions, just remember that because all of you, there are no recusals for this project, we need a vote that is 5 in the affirmative for a demolition to move forward when it is a non-contributing without qualification structure. So giving you that in advance so that you're prepared when it comes time to think about voting, whether or not you've decided tonight to vote or continue, that will be up to you. So we have an existing single-family dwelling and accessory shed. They're currently located on the property. The applicant's proposing demolition of both structures and subsequent redevelopment of the property. The primary structure is historic, late 19th century, single-story wood frame dwelling with a large 1970s era 1.5-story addition, and it's supported by an unpainted sandstone foundation. The Sanborn maps indicate that the original portion of this residence was built prior to August 1886, and that the accessory structure at the rear of the property postdates 1922. The accessory structure is supported by wood timbers, on-grade foundation with an earthen floor, vertical wood plank walls, a steeply pitched front gable roof with rusted corrugate metal roofing material. And so although this property is historically significant for its association with Telluride's residential development, dating from the time of the primary structure's construction circa 1886, and the house is also architecturally significant for its vernacular wood frame plan and modest scale, there has been a substantial loss of integrity, and I did include the architectural inventory form in your packet along with additional materials. A reminder that per Land Use Code Section 2-326, a non-contributing without qualification structure is a structure that does not contribute to the historic character of the district except for the structure's mass, scale, and relationship to adjacent properties, and which has been altered to such an extent that historic information is not interpretable and restoration may not be possible. So the code, the land use code, establishes the criteria for demolition of a non-rated or non-designated structure, and all 5 criteria that we will review now must be met. So I list the criteria in light green here. You have them in your packet. I'm not going to read those. I'm just going to quickly go through staff analysis for each one. So for A5, which speaks to historical integrity, architectural character of the area, and not diminishing or compromising that character. Staff analysis is that as documented in the architectural inventory form, the existing residence and accessory structure are classified as non-contributing without qualifications. As I've stated, there has been a substantial loss of integrity over time. The proposed demolition of the primary and accessory structures will not substantially diminish or compromise the historical integrity and/or architectural character of the area. So that was for A5. If you would like me to read the actual land use code criteria, I'd be happy to. I figured, so I'll just keep quickly going. So for A6, which speaks to the subsequent development of the property, Staff analysis is that the existing non-contributing without qualifications residence and accessory structure are inconsistent with surrounding historic patterns related to siting setbacks and massing. The new primary and accessory structures, once deemed compliant with the design guidelines through the HARC review process, will add to the architectural character of the neighborhood, reinforcing traditional scale and orientation. And the new structures will also no longer encroach into the right-of-way and will be compliant with the land use code, building code, and design guidelines versus the existing structures. That's post-HARC review, clearly. And note that as I go through the review and analysis, I'm specifically focused on the demolition first. Later, I'm going to get into the design guidelines, and there are some specific staff recommendations in that space, but I stuck to just the demolition first as it's standalone per the criteria. So A7, staff analysis is that both structures proposed for demolition are non-contributing without qualifications, and their removal will not adversely affect the historic importance or integrity of structures on adjacent properties. The proposed new structures have been intentionally sited and designed to respect existing spatial relationships and the overall streetscape, and the new structures, once refined through the HARC review process, will be of appropriate mass and scale within the context of the neighborhood. A8, the structures there are no other rated or designated structures on the property, and so the removal of these will not impact any other rated or designated structures. And then finally, A9, that pertains to the redevelopment of the site. Staff analysis is that the demolition request is being reviewed concurrently with the proposal for new construction that complies with the design guidelines, post-HARC review, of course, and underlying dimensional standards for the historic residential zone district. As the applicant notes, retention of the existing structures was initially explored. However, further site investigation by the applicant identified significant structural and foundational deficiencies, and the non-conforming setbacks limit the ability to bring the primary structure into compliance with current life safety, building code, and zoning requirements. You'll remember or recall that this primary structure crosses the property line. There's an REP in place, et cetera, from our last public hearing. So the proposal is to replace the non-contributing without qualifications primary and accessory structures with buildings that are code compliant, appropriately scaled, and architecturally compatible with the THLD. And the proposed redevelopment of the property, once brought into full compliance with the design guidelines, will be compatible with and enhance the architectural character of the immediate area, the neighborhood, and the historic residential treatment area, and eliminate existing nonconformities. And the applicant can speak more, of course, to the demolition proposal. This is the staff recommendation now, again, just for the demolition. In terms of the primary structure, staff are suggesting that HARC consider approving demolition based on the criteria for demolition of a non-contributing without qualification structure having been met with the following conditions. The demolition is contingent upon the applicant obtaining a HARC certificate of appropriateness for redevelopment of the property. So HARC approval for redevelopment and then moving that project forward. The applicant shall enter into development agreement with the town to ensure that said redevelopment does occur. If during the demolition process, additional historic elements beyond what are able to be observed in the preliminary assessment are uncovered, the owner will be required to stop the demolition, contact town staff, and discuss next steps, which may be a change in path forward. And the applicant must provide a plan for salvage reuse of any remaining historic material. That is for the primary structure. And again, it's a non-compliant structure with significant challenges that is the basis for part of this interpretation. In terms of the accessory structure, staff questioning the need to demolish the secondary structure versus relocating it on the property to address the right-of-way encroachment and the nonconformities. So I think that this needs further discussion by HARC. The Sanborn maps show that the accessory structure at the rear of the property postdates 1922. So it was hence constructed just after the period of significance, but further analysis is needed to determine if this structure should be rehabilitated and adaptively reused as a component of the proposed project versus demolition. And I will speak further to that during the design guidelines review because there are other facets of that for your consideration. So now we'll get into the design guidelines review, and I'll just whip through those. Historic residential, alley, shed, and secondary structures and exterior and site lighting design guidelines and standards apply. And this is where I will tag in John Southard, who did the review of the historic residential treatment area design guidelines and standards, and he will give you his summary of that part of this review. So John, if I could tag you in.
It's time to unmute. There we go.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Shambaugh and members of the commission. Delighted to be here presenting to you again. I hope everyone is doing well. As relates to the historic residential design guidelines and the application for 116 East Columbia Avenue, there are a number of guidelines that we were unable to confirm compliance on because of a lack of information. I won't belabor them, but those are number 2 and 14, which deal with plant materials, particularly retaining existing vegetation. There's not, short of language identifying that the front yard planting beds will be maintained and enhanced, any information relating to the disposition of other extant natural resources. So additional information is needed for both 2 and 14 to determine whether or not the proposal is compliant. With respect to the pattern of building materials, that is number 23, neither the plan set nor the applicant narrative clearly depict or specify whether the exterior wood finishes shown on sheet A4.3 will be painted or stained. So additional information is needed there to ensure compliance with HR number 23. Ditto for HR number 24, both the wood finishes and the roofing materials. So we do not have information as to whether the wood finishes would be painted or stained, and we do not have confirmation that the roofing material will have a baked on paint finish. So confirmation is needed there. The last area in the historic residential design guidelines needing additional information, clarification, relates to the doors. That is design guideline number 26. I did not find sufficient information identifying whether or not doors will exceed 2/3 lights. So I could not confirm that design guideline number 26 has been satisfied. So as a recap, design guidelines number 2, 14, 23, 24, and 26 are unconfirmed as to whether the proposal is compliant. The one design guideline that I found the proposal to not be consistent with is number 25, that is windows, specifically 25C, 25C.1, and 25D, 25C being windows with vertical emphasis are encouraged. 25C.1, a general rule is that the height should be twice the dimension of the width, and 25D being the placement and grouping of windows should be similar to that seen historically. The window above the folding doors on the second floor here, which is shown with the red box around it, that appears to be inconsistent with 25C, 25C.1, and 25D. That is, as relates to vertical emphasis, the rule regarding height versus width, and the placement and grouping of windows, and what would be seen historically. As relates to exterior and site lighting guidelines, number 1 and 2, we do not have sufficient information to determine that either 1 or 2 are satisfied. So that is another area that the additional applicant needs to provide additional information. So as relates to the design guidelines that I covered, that is historic residential and exterior site lighting, the vast majority of items cited are items needing additional information. And one, that is historic residential design guideline number 25 pertaining to windows. The staff analysis concludes that the proposal as relates to that second floor window shown there in the red box is not consistent with design guidelines. Kristen, would you like to cover the alley, shed, and secondary structures?
Yes, I'll tag back in. Thank you so much, John. So now alley shed and secondary structures. For this one, number 2A and A1, A3, B5, the staff analysis is the applicant is proposing to demolish the existing accessory structure, again, non-contributing without qualifications. I believe there is a case to be made for rehabilitation and adaptive reuse. The design guidelines, as noted above, speak to the preservation of both older and newer buildings that contribute to the visual character of the alley. In this case, I believe further analysis should be undertaken by the applicant to determine if it is feasible to preserve and adaptively reuse the accessory structure prior to consideration of an approval for demolition and new construction. And this really needs further discussion by HARC. But I do think that retaining is supported by these design guidelines as well. So for further discussion, as you know, these are the standard notes. Pending project approval by HARC, building, planning, and public works staff have identified items that will need resolution prior to building permit issuance, and these should not impede your review process. These include things like site runoff, drainage, infiltration, utilities plan, confirmation of adequate on-site snow storage, etc. So we provided a proposed motion. The motion has been refined, and so the packet will be updated in the document center with the more concise motions, and you have them there, so I'm not going to go through those. Thank you very much.
Okay, questions for John or Kristen?
Let's see. I have a couple things. You mentioned studying the mass and scale and form. In the memo, the discussion where you go through every single guideline or section in the guidelines, mass and scale just says yes, there's no discussion about that.
John, who will speak to that.
Okay.
Ask John to unmute.
That makes sense, John?
It does. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
So Church and Bob, members of the commission, that is correct. It's my understanding that's been the traditional practice if something is believed to be compliant to indicate yes without explanation, but the analysis in looking at design guideline number, I apologize, number 17, that is mass and scale. It was my conclusion that this is consistent with the guidelines. That said, I'm certainly open to thoughts or feedback or different opinions.
I would just say from past experience, typically there is some comment about the mass and scale from the staff, whether they say we think it's perfectly compliant or they have some issues with it. It's a minor point, but I just think we should have some discussion about it in the notes. Same with the secondary structure as well.
I appreciate that guidance. Thank you very much. And I will ensure that in the future that is included.
Okay, I mean, it's the most central guideline. It's what will be remembered for.
Yes.
Or not.
And I just, where is it here? The staff findings talks about 25 of the 31 historic residential design guidelines. Personally, I don't think we're looking at quantity versus quality here. That I don't really know that we need to list how many are approved and how many aren't. Or how many you agree with and how many you don't. It's not another big deal, but I don't see the benefit of having that in there, quite frankly.
Well, again, thank you for the input.
Okay, anything else?
For staff, no, I'm good. I'm ready to get into the.
Anybody else?
Kristen or John, I have a question. It's about condition number 3, which revolves around the discovery of potential historic material and the requirement to stop demolition and contact staff. My question is, that really need to be a condition, or is that language that's already established in the land use code?
It's a good point. Usually we do include that statement just to ensure that the
Yeah.
applicant, it's very clear to the applicant that that's our expectation as staff. And when we send out, when we follow up with applicants, once we're issuing the CA, we include those conditions and reminders that that is something we expect. But if you don't want it as a condition, we can just make sure it's in the.
My only reason for asking is that it makes it seem as though, or at least the inference is that that would be overlooked somehow by the applicant.
Well,
Well,
I think it's a good reminder and
yeah.
I mean, even though it's duplicative, maybe to your point, we have included those notes in the past, and to me, I like it to be on the record and out front. It's
Okay.
such an important one. I mean, not in this particular house, but on contributing houses and I mean, primary, but
Understood. Maybe perhaps it's just worded differently than it was worded in the past. It kind of jumped out to me.
Sure,
Yeah.
I might have been emphasizing it
Okay.
perhaps more, but we can think about that wording. This note does also appear in rehabilitation plans prior to our approval. But again, really important for the applicants to have it up front, I think.
There's no potentially there's no rehabilitation plan.
And that is the challenge here.
I know this is getting into process a little bit, but Kristen created this section with additional requirements of Public Works and Land Use Code. I'm wondering if that's a more appropriate place to put like condition 1 through 4. So they're still in this packet, but they're not, it just makes our conditions less, right? Number 1 through 4 is more of a procedural thing that we don't as a board necessarily need to vote on or will modify. I'm wondering if that's an appropriate place to put it in that other paragraph that is stating to the applicant, you need to make sure you do these things, but we don't necessarily have it as a condition that we are potentially voting on and modifying for every application.
yeah.
Just as a thought.
I don't have a problem with it, but that'd be, you could check that out and see if it makes sense to.
I would say in the future going forward, I think Matt's got a good point. 1 through 4 could just as well be in that second or in that paragraph right next to, well, the other departments are going to do this and that, but
As an applicant, it seems conditions are generally things that have to be responded to.
Yep.
That's the only difference.
I do understand what you're saying. I think part of my concern is if HARC were to move forward with approving demolitions, any demolition, hypothetically, not this one in particular, the reason I put these in as conditions is I feel that HARC should not approve a demolition without ensuring these 4 steps are something you're approving, you're signing off on as the HARC board. Certainly staff will make sure these things happen, but I would think that you wouldn't approve a demolition without affirming that. That was my thinking, but it's entirely up to you, of course, as the HARC board, how you want to handle that.
maybe we even discuss it further at strategic planning, but for now, unless anybody objects and is fervent about removing 1 through 4, we can let it stand.
No,
Just a conversation.
And I do have one question. I'm all over trying to preserve even sheds without qualifications. But as I read the referenced standards on AS1, A1, A3, and A5, I can't find the words that I was looking for.
Okay.
Give us ammunition to say, we really need to try to preserve this. Those are just talking about the alleys in general, but is there some words that is our trigger to say, no, we need to do it? They need to explore further and see if they can save it. I can't find it in alley standards and 1A and 1B.
I was going to suggest that when the applicant speaks, that they could go into more detail about the condition of the building and the size and the use and
Which
all
they are.
those things. I think she could give us a more detail and we could have a better understanding of what we want to say about it.
That's fine.
And I do think it is important to be reminded that retaining newer, smaller scale outbuildings on the alley is something that is highlighted in the design guidelines, lest the conversation become, it's not rated versus rated. Actually, we want to preserve newer buildings as well. That's what I was trying to emphasize is let's not overlook.
I'm not complaining. I was just
Yeah.
looking for some more powerful language, and
Sure.
we all saw Park City in 2002
Mhm.
just demolished and ruined all their alley structures in the name of the Olympics for commercial purposes, and that history's gone forever. So, another thing that makes Telluride unique. So, all
Absolutely.
right, if there's no other questions, we can hear from the applicant. Okay,
Hi, Christine for Power Shift Architects and John Miller. Sorry, this is a whole new project for you guys to see. We have gone around and around for the last couple of weeks. We are where we are today because of the building department. And our last proposal is not allowed to be built. Anyway, I'm sure you guys understand it wasn't allowed to be moved. We were not able to have windows on that side, even if I moved it into the property. Anyway, there was no point. So we had a meeting with staff and the assistant attorney and then with Sam, and the resolution is that it has to come down on that aspect. And John's gonna go ahead and give you a quick rundown. He helped me pull this together quickly because we had such limited time. So I'll jump in when needed.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Thank you to staff for the presentation. We talked a little bit about the location and the site context, so I'm going to skip over those items. And just kind of highly talk about the impact statement. I think with this project, as Chris described, it evolved. It was very nuanced around some of the constraints of actually moving the project, moving the home, trying to reconstruct it within the requirements for the building code. And so as we started to think about what the best solution is forward, this is the plan that arose. And when we looked at the site, we looked at the architectural inventory form, and we really felt like there wasn't much worth preserving. And I know this board is here to preserve, but when you look at the context of the site itself and you look at the structure, it really doesn't make a lot of sense. And I'm going to go through why that is the case. I think in terms of this presentation, I'd like to quickly just talk about the demolition criteria that staff outlined, and then we'll switch over to some of the policies for the HR zone. Chris will probably take the lead on that, and then I'll try to touch on some of the conditions that were discussed by staff as well to finish. As discussed earlier, we feel like we're in compliance with the land use code in terms of things like heights, mass and scale. I'm happy to touch on mass and scale. But really this land use section with the definition for non-contributing without qualifications is the key, I think, to start this conversation. And I'm going to read this definition just because I feel like it's an important definition, but a non-contributing with qualification structure is a structure that does not contribute to the historical character of the district, except for the structure's mass, scale, in relationship to adjacent properties. And that's an important distinction. It's been altered to such an extent that the historic information is not interpretable and restoration may not be possible. So really, this is a philosophical question around historic preservation. And I've worked in a number of different municipalities where it's handled differently. But I think the idea with this definition is basically saying, look, we have a lot of really nice structures that are worth preserving within town. And we have some structures that don't really contribute to that historic fabric, absent the mass and scale of those structures, how it looks, how it feels, how it sits on the site. And so the goal with this project wasn't to try to make this structure look like every other historic building. It was really to design a home that fit within the mass and the scale of the site, that fit within the streetscape of the site as well as the alleyscape. And that's what you're going to see as we go through the proposal today. So here's a photo of the existing home. You can see it sits pretty proudly on the street. You're probably familiar with last month's presentation and how close it is within that right-of-way. It actually encroaches within that town-owned property. Here's a summer photo. I thought it was nice to have both just because you can see it with vegetation, and the photo of the home in the rear was under construction in this first photo, and you can see it completed, and you can see that streetscape in this photo, how far that home is set back. The proposal we're looking at today with this home is to mimic that existing streetscape depths. And so as you walk down Columbia, you're going to see homes in a similar alignment with each other. In terms of the demolition, really what I'm hoping to break down here is the historic classification of the structure and the findings of the architectural report, the preservation framework of the code itself in the town of Telluride, and then the specific redevelopment outcomes that we're hoping to achieve. In terms of the historic classification, again, this is non-contributing without qualifications. And it's noted in that survey, that 1998 survey, that this home had a substantial loss of historic integrity. Right, so again, that's key. No architectural integrity, no significant historic association. It doesn't reflect traditional massing, siding, or craftsmanship. And it's not within, or excuse me, it does not meet the National Register criteria. So again, this home, although it's in a historic place, it doesn't necessarily mean it's historic. It doesn't reflect the things that create the historic nature for the home itself. And when we look at the framework of the town and what we're trying to accomplish, it's really to protect these contributing resources. It doesn't require us to retain non-contributing structures. And in fact, it says that new structures should fit within the existing through the mass and scale and the way it looks. So that's the goal. We feel like the proposed demo allows really a context-sensitive new design. Thinking about things like setbacks, thinking about the things like, again, the massing. I keep saying massing and scale. Again, you said that's the most important. So what we're trying to do is really just think about how this home fits within the site. And rather than preserve all of the materials that exist today, come up with a design that fits well and blends well with the street. Again, this would strengthen rather than diminish the historical district context. Kristen went through the demolition criteria in the narrative. We've addressed this criteria. I'm not going to read through all of the specific items, but we do feel we meet the criteria and we agree with staff's findings on these items. I wanted to quickly show you a photo of the existing outbuilding. Chris can talk more about the structural integrity of that building itself, but you can see here, it doesn't really even fit a full-size vehicle. So in terms of thinking about the code, thinking about what we're trying to accomplish, the goal is to have a fully enclosed garage space that meets the LUC requirements, and this structure doesn't currently do that. Absent its inefficiency as a garage, it also is set back, or it also sits over the property line. So we have an encroachment that we're trying to deal with. And when you start to think about how do we save this, it becomes problematic. Picking it up and moving it, theoretically that's possible, but it doesn't accomplish the goal of having a garage space for the vehicle in the future. When we look at the conditions around preserving materials, we're also, I think, generally okay with that condition. Where it becomes problematic is when you look at the size of this structure, you're not going to have enough materials to cover the new structure. And so figuring out a way internally, what makes the most sense in terms of blending the old and the new is going to be crucial for that. But we think we can accomplish that. And we have no hesitation saying that we can preserve the existing materials to be reused. Where it becomes more problematic again is if we try to preserve the structure or move the structure. I've included some photos of the
Delay.
Yes.
I think it's the internet here.
I've also included a few photos of the basement of the existing home. We went last week and took some photos of this space. And you can see the foundation. It's really it's stone foundation with rubble. There's a number of cracks. This middle image, these stones actually kind of move when you touch them. They're not really physically held together with the mortar. On the image on the right, you can actually see the fill migrating from behind the wall to in front of the wall, right here in front of the water heater. Here are some more pictures of the existing foundation. The photo on the left shows a floor joist being supported on rubble. A number of walls are failing in this space. Here you can see the stairway to go to the basement. And I'm a very big human, so it was hard for me to get into this space to take the photos. So generally speaking, after looking at the photos, I think what we inferred from that was number one, the building isn't in the right place. If we try to mess with the foundation, it's going to completely require that to be torn out and demoed. And then if we try to move the home, it doesn't fit. Doesn't fit within the setbacks currently. So if we start to, when we started to go down the path of can we shrink the walls, it became a question of, well, all of a sudden now the roof trusses don't fit. Nothing kind of worked together. Really quickly before I shift over to Chris, I wanted to just briefly touch on some of the items that were brought up by staff. Is it okay if I do this? Or you
Yes,
want
of
to?
course.
So I'll just quickly go through the policies that were called out and then briefly touch on the conditions. Natural resources 2 and 14 relate to landscaping. Currently, as we're proposing this project, the landscaping planters in the front of the house, I can stop sharing and you can pull that up. Okay. Be quick on my part. So while she's pulling that up, the existing planters, given that the home as proposed is going to be pulled back from that setback, we envision that area to be completely preserved and enhanced. The goal would be to keep those planters, to preserve those planters. There are a number of trees, I believe it's 4 trees at the rear of the home that are within that development envelope of the disturbed space. Those will need to go. But as part of the proposal, we are proposing 5 new chokecherry plantings to occur around the home in different locations. So we understand the concern from staff on 2 and 14. We feel like the intent of what we proposed of the plan set meets that criteria, even if it might have been a little unclear as we went into that review. But again, the planters would be preserved, additional trees would be planted, and the goal is to maintain what we can, pulling that house back from the front.
One more note on that, and it's not shown on the survey, but up here in front, and John had showed the picture, that it's an aspen tree up there that I think staff was referring to. It's not on our property, and so that would also need to be preserved for construction.
The next item had to do with materials. It was 23A and 24. The sheet A 4.3 shows materials. Currently, we're proposing the wood siding to be stained, and then the roof is shown as a matte black standing seam. Those items, we can add that detail and call out the specific stain, but the images you see are reflective of the proposal. So that is a stained wood, and that is a matte black finished roof, standing seam. I'm going to move quickly through the rest. Windows number 25. Again, these are shown on 4.3. We agree with staff's interpretation of that requirement, and we are proposing to remove that window above the sliding glass door in its entirety. And then the final condition around the HR policies is 26. This is something that also needs to be revised. That railing up on the upper deck obscured that image, but that is or will be proposed as a 2/3 light door as well. We feel like both of those window door changes are pretty easy to revise. In terms of the ES standards, there was a concern on the ES standards around fixture X1, I believe. And X1 is unique because it has different lumen outputs depending on the bulb selection. And for that particular fixture, there's 3 different bulbs that can be selected, with the lowest wattage being equivalent to about 450 lumens. And so we're fine. Really, it's just a fixture. We're fine if that needs to be changed so it can be more clear. We recognize that somebody could later come in and switch the bulb and increase the lumens. So we're happy changing that, but we wanted to just, for the record, say that that light does meet compliance if it's selected with that 6-watt LED bulb at 450 lumens. In terms of the interior lighting, the number 2 standard, we didn't really look into interior lighting at this point, but generally speaking, with the glazing as it's arranged, there's not a lot of big spans of glazing. And we feel like the lighting or any light trespass from the home would be minimized. We're happy to provide additional details on that if it's necessary, but again, with minimal areas of glazing, we feel like it's really a non-issue. And then again, for the accessory structure, we touched on that, but again, it has to be removed. It's over the lot line. The question is, how does it get rebuilt? And again, just to reiterate, we're okay reusing those materials. The question is how much, what's the delta between what we have and what we need, and what's that gonna look like? In terms of conditions, 1 and 2, we're fine with those conditions. We would request on condition 3 that the development agreement timeline be the same as the HARC approval timeline, so that, you know, if the HARC approval is good for 3 years, there's not a 2-year shot clock on a development agreement to happen. So we just want to make sure those align. What's that? Oh, sorry. We're also okay with condition number 4. We would like a little clarification from staff around reuse and salvage specifics and specific materials that could be better or worse for reuse. Condition 5, we've touched on vegetation, and we're okay with preserving all existing vegetation outside of that development envelope of the home and the parking. Condition 6 relates to cladding and roof materials. We've discussed those. We're happy to provide an additional note on that if necessary, but we feel like we're meeting that requirement with stained siding and the standing seam matte roof, black matte roof. Condition 7, again, we are proposing, based on staff's comments, to remove that window in its entirety. Condition 8 would be, excuse me, we're okay with this condition, and we can provide that detail showing the 2/3 lights compliance for the door. And then I hope condition 9 could be removed based on our conversation, but again, we're happy to change that fixture if the board feels that's more appropriate. And condition 10, just generally speaking, we feel like it needs to be adjusted and moved, and we don't really feel like this is a feasible condition. Again, we're happy to rebuild the parking area as we're proposing, reusing the materials, but we just think number 10 needs a little bit of work. So I'll pause there. Chris has some architectural stuff.
Just answered all the questions from, we don't have to repeat.
Good job.
I do have a comment though for Stacy in your request, and I don't know, does it matter where that 1 through 4 ends up? But it's important for us to get it noted so it gets on our construction documents, because there are times where I don't see it with the contractor. And so if we can get this things noted, it's just a little reminder to them that this has to happen. So I appreciate 1 through 4 somewhere in the memo.
Okay.
And Commissioner, I didn't specifically touch on your mask and scale question. I did address it in the narrative. I'm happy to read from the narrative.
I got it.
I read the narrative. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, questions for the applicants? Hearing none. We'll hear from the public. If anybody in the room wants to come up, we encourage you to speak on this project, 3 minutes or less, please. Raise your hand electronically if you're out there. You want to talk about this project at 116 It's Columbia. I see nobody electronically, and I see nobody in the room. So we'll go ahead to deliberations, and we have conditions 1 through 10 of staff, and as traditionally, if we'll go around the room, if you just say yes or no on 1 through 10, and then add any changes to one of them and or any new conditions. Let's do that for efficiency. And who would like to go first?
Well, I'll go first because I'm down. Well, unless Sherry wants to go first.
Oh, well, you go ahead, and then Sherry jump in.
Well, 1 through 4 are acceptable to me because they're more or less, for lack of a better term, kind of boilerplate addition to make sure they're included. Condition 5 is fine. Retain existing vegetation. 6, the applicant has said they'll provide some more information, which is fine. Condition 7, the applicant indicated they're willing to just simply remove the window. I will say we have in the past approved transom windows above doors. I think in this case, perhaps there's no separation between the head of the door and the sill of the window. There's some more conversation we could have about that, but I don't want that to become our new standard. Transom windows don't have a vertical emphasis necessarily, but combined with a door do. And it's something we've approved in the past,
Yeah.
so. 2/3 light, that's fine. Lighting details, I'm fine with that. And then, so really, we kind of get to the meat of the deal for me is the feasibility or the practicality of preserving that shed. And so I go to the guidelines that are cited, which are the alley standards. Specifically alley character 2A1, which says to maintain the rustic utilitarian character of an alley, and one says preserve alley buildings in their traditional location where feasible. It almost seems like there, to me, there's a word missing from that sentence. Preserve historic alley buildings in their location when feasible. I mean, we're talking more about an appropriate mass and scale, and if we determine that the mass and scale of the new structure, the new proposed structure is appropriate, then I'm not particularly concerned with forcing an applicant to preserve a structure that is not historic or that has no
But
qualifications.
you wouldn't have a problem, would you, if they would use, because we go back to the Secretary of Interior's litmus tests, what's the passerby see, maybe reusing some of those old materials, so it still looks utilitarian in the
Yeah, but
biggest way?
to me, that's a different, to me, that goes back up to
4.
4.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The salvage and reuse of those materials. But maintaining that shed in its footprint and location,
Can't.
I don't think is, well, it's not, to me, it's not, well, you can't, so you don't have to. To me, it's even if you could.
Yeah.
It's not preservation because it's not a rated structure. It is a rated structure without qualifications.
Right.
Anyway.
Yep.
So no, I would strike 10.
Okay.
That's where I am.
Matt?
I agree with Stacy on condition number 7. I would not remove that window. I would revise it to have vertical emphasis or at least a small square window. I think it benefits that elevation to have that window up high.
Say remove or revise.
I would just say revise the double gable end windows located above the folding doors on the rear elevation to
Even though
have
they
vertical emphasis.
agreed to remove it?
I think it actually helps that
think it helps.
elevation to have a small window up
I,
top.
I don't care.
Otherwise, yeah, it's a big
It's-
plane.
Okay.
And then condition number 10, I think it would be nice if the applicant would take those materials and apply it to the new structure as they've indicated they would. I would revise that condition to say reuse the existing materials from the existing accessory structure on the new accessory structure for AS 2A and B and AS 4A. And then the rest of the conditions I'm fine with, and I wouldn't add any additional ones.
Okay.
Just it's go through the conditions or the sections AS 2A and B and eliminate the other ones.
NAS 4B, and then
4B.
leave the other ones, I think he said.
No, I wouldn't.
Oh, would you leave, eliminate?
The other, as sort of Stacy was mentioning, these other conditions are talking about maintaining its location, which is not what we're doing. So I just think that we just need, it would be a good nod to maintain that.
AS 2 and
materiality.
B and everything's else that's gone.
AS 2A and B
Yeah.
and AS 4A, or is what the
AS 4.
conditions I would say.
Okay.
Yes.
And eliminate the ones there,
Okay.
And B.
Gotcha.
right? Eliminate the other ones.
I'm just gonna ditto what Matt said rather than be redundant. I totally agree with the rest of the staff conditions.
Yeah, I do too. I think one thing we need to decide is, we're going to continue it or we're going to approve with conditions. But I do have a couple of other points here. Per HR 19A.3, I'm saying revise the roof slope revise the roof slope to increase, revise the roof slope increase to be a minimum of 8 and 12 per HR 19A.3. It's a low roof. I have 2 others.
That might break the height limit at 25, I don't.
Well,
know.
I'd have to look at it and see if she can lower the sill plate a little bit or whatever. Okay. This is a long one. On the accessory structure, remove the alley facing deck per AS 4 and step down to the south alley per AS 3A and A.4. AS A.4. 3A and A.4, yes. And then the third one, step the primary structure down and scale to the rear of the lot per HR 18A2. I think that's something we can discuss. Does she need to do a step in that roof or that at the second floor to bring it down toward the alley? I'm throwing it out there as a
It
question.
is something I consider. The ridge line is 37 feet which is within the 35 to 40.
Yes.
So an additional step down, I don't think is warranted.
I was on the fence about it, so I wanted to throw it out there and see what the other people thought.
Well, while we're on it, straw poll, anybody? I mean, I'll just say it, it's far enough and it's behind the accessory structure that I'm okay with it at 37 feet.
Okay.
But anybody opposed? Okay, Sherry, you good?
Yep,
All right,
I do have a comment.
okay.
You're
let's
working your
finish,
way around the room.
Bob, and
I'm
Jim,
done.
we won't forget you.
Bob, can we talk about the modification to the accessory structure again? Are you saying?
On 10, I agree. I think we use the material, but we don't.
No,
use
no, but
material.
you said, didn't you say something about eliminating a deck on the accessory structure?
Yeah, on the alley deck.
And do what with it, Bob? The alley deck?
Yeah, can you
And then-
repeat
and
your
then
question?
I think
What you
I'm
were
thinking is that you would
suggesting.
have a change in roof plane at the where that deck is. Eliminate the deck and have a
Instead
roof.
of having, you'd like to
Yes.
see a roof that steps
Yes.
down.
Yeah, maybe I could jump in since that was one of my primary comments was with regard to the alley structure. I think AS 4A and 4A2 say things such as features such as porches, bays, balconies typically were not found on alley structures. 4A is maintain the simple detailing and range of materials found historically on sheds, and 4A2 avoid details along alleys that may give a shed a residential appearance. So I agree with Bob about removing the alley deck, and also potentially maybe the commission could discuss the 3 windows on the second level, which I think sort of give it that sort of residential appearance, maybe fewer windows, or some other modification that makes it look less like a residence.
AS2C would cover that. Limit the number of windows on secondary structures and especially on alley elevations to maintain the utilitarian nature of the alley.
Good team effort.
Well, but hold on, that's not an alley elevation.
It's
West
when
facing.
you're walking down the alley.
Not alley facing.
Not an alley elevation.
Is that condition, or is that guideline limited to only facing directly the alley? I don't remember that it says that.
Well, it says 2 things. First, it says limit the number of windows on secondary structures and especially on alley elevations.
Okay.
2 points. I think it's well taken.
And when you look at the proportion of it compared to the main house, I think that that same elevation of the main house only has 4. And that part is significantly smaller and has 3.
Very good.
Okay.
Anything else on 1, 2, 3?
I lost the applicant on this. It's not on there, but the fence that is on the west side of the parking area, I was trying to look here on A4.2 at the height. I think according to guidelines, you're not supposed to have anything higher than in a rear yard 6 feet. And I was just looking at the height on that, and I didn't have anywhere where I could cite the materials.
That's not our fence.
It's not your fence,
No.
okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Because I just see it, it's in the opening one.
Like right there on the line.
Perfect. That's all I have.
Hey, Lisa.
Okay,
Ken?
yes, I don't want to repeat, what has been said already, agree with Matt. on 1 to 10. And I was wondering about one more thing, which is the skirting around the foundation coming up above the line of the floor, which I know we've approved that in other treatment areas, but since this is the historical residential, I believe that we should follow. And I'm not sure if this is HR 23A, intro pattern of building materials, or 20 architectural character. We could use either or. So let's say 23A intro. Where basically they should be used, sorry, the pattern created by the unit size, sorry, I'm looking for. So materials should appear similar in scale, texture, and finish to those used historically. So this has to deal with patterns, I get it, but I know that in the historical center, in our core, basically the stone has been traditionally used to cover just the foundation and not above. And I wondered what do you guys think about that?
Well, let's react to that now, so we
Mhm.
don't lose it, and then we'll hear from Sherry to wrap up. She's suggesting it should be lowered per the guidelines that she cited in HR 2320. Any consensus? Way or the other?
I would
I don't
agree.
see a problem with it, lowering it.
How many feet up is that on the wall?
Looks like
Depends on which end you're at, but
I think it's 2 feet,
2
but
feet
on the
up.
back, or sorry, on the front, but not on the back. It seems to get taller as it goes.
Oh, I
back.
see. It
it
angles up.
slopes away.
The grade slopes down, but
Well, Bob and Andrew, and then we'll go down the row. And any consensus?
I would support lowering it to more traditional
floor level.
floor level.
Sherry, you okay with that?
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
All right, I think we're okay with that. Okay, thank you, Lisa. Sherry, let's
Yeah.
finish with you, and then we'll have a straw poll on at least 3 of these other ones.
Yeah, I think I covered, I agree with that which has been discussed by everyone else. And I covered my primary concern, which was relating to the alley structure and its sort of residential appearance. So I think I am good.
Thank you. And so what we have on the table is a revision to 10 to reuse materials per 2 new standards or guidelines, AS.
But I do have a question regarding that. We already have a 4 that says that.
Well, it doesn't specifically say, although it could be assumed, the accessory structure. I'd almost strike 4 or we don't need 4 and 10, to your point.
Right.
I don't know which one.
If we say that, condition number 1
Or can stay.
and the accessory structure, so that's, to me, that's covering all 4 of those. It's not just the
Oh.
primary, it's everything.
All right.
Sorry, can you say that again, Bob?
Condition number 1, in parentheses, if we want to include the accessory structure in the demolition, it says the demolition of the primary structure and the accessory structure. And then everything else below that is tied to the demolition.
So we could leave 4 in and scratch 10?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Is that all right?
I think
You could add the word.
providing 10 provides more clarity to the applicant. And I think 4 is a procedural thing to make sure that that plan is included in the
You're right.
the plan. So I think 4 can stay and 10 can stay. I don't see. a
Okay.
reason
Oh,
for
you
that.
do both.
Yeah.
Let's
But
revise.
10 should just say reuse the accessory structure materials.
Okay.
Or not exterior materials, not like the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
framing
yeah.
and,
Exterior materials, and we have the 2 conditions. Bob has them. And then, so let's straw poll on revising the roof slope to 812. Let's just make a decision. And it should say, and keep the 25-foot height of the gable. I mean, we
Right,
need to
you have
comply with that.
You have to do that to be.
But anybody wanna,
I think that's a great suggestion to be much more historically compliant, and I'm personally fine if the height calculation increases by doing that. I think it's just a more proportionate building.
As long as the average works out properly.
they still have to be compliant with the land. use
Of course,
I
of
think
course,
so.
but I think they're under, so it's,
All right,
they go.
yeah, they're
higher
23.
than that in boo, I think that's.
We wanna say 812? Or is it 612 now?
No, in the guidelines, it's 8 and 12.
Oh, okay, all right, so 812. Everybody okay?
As low as 812.
Yes. No lower.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's low.
it kind of sets 812 as the low end.
Yeah, which is fine.
I know what's gonna happen at 912, so I think 812 should be workable. All right, so we got 8, so we do have revise the roof slope as a number 11. And then the alley accessory structure, this deck and or stepping down, what do we want to do with that? Who would like to start? And let's just take a straw poll. Yes or no?
I'm a little torn. I mean, it is clear in the alley structure, but I think that deck adds pedestrian scale and interest. And I could go either way with that. Bob's suggestion.
Stacy? Where are you?
I mean, I could go either way. I appreciated Sherry's comments about guidelines that speak to those sheds not appearing residential necessarily, but what Matt just said makes sense to me also. We like stepping down, we like pedestrian scale, so
Well, I'm still asking.
I will say this, if it were more just of a shed roof over the garage, it would provide that stepping down and not be such a residential element. And they do have a deck on the other side, the interior side of the structure, interior to the lot.
Yeah.
So to strike a balance, change that deck to a roof, a shed roof.
I think that's what he suggested.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody in agreement with that? I can go with it. Shed roof. And again, as you said, they have it back on the other side, so. All right, so that's number 12. Shed roof. And we already have the guidelines cited, AS4, 4A, 4, A2.
3A and A.4.
All right, and
And
3A.
the first part, removing the deck is AS4.
Okay,
and-
thanks, Bob.
And the other two is 3A.
We'll now be headed for you making this motion. I think.
Well, okay.
But number 13, see what happens if I keep speaking?
Yes.
And 13 was, I personally agree, Andrew's comments, 3 here and only 4 on the main house. And it is an and provision in that alley. So
Okay.
I could vote for that,
You
everybody.
tie that in with 7? Are we leaving 7 as remove or revise?
Well, 7 is gonna say revise to be more traditional. The windows above the folding doors is what I wrote down from
I'm in the wrong
everybody's.
place there. Jeez.
Revise the windows.
Okay.
To be more traditional. We don't have to state size and verticality, but we know what traditional is.
And year 14 talks about the windows. Could you repeat that, please?
13, it'd be 13.
Or 13, excuse me.
To eliminate one of the 3 windows. And say
Delete.
AS.
I would say reduce the number of windows on secondary structures per AS2C.
Okay, reduce the number of windows on the.
And I have to say, I don't even know if it's been years, but we have nothing to say about mass and scale. We're all good, right? Land use code compliant, height, width, everything, okay? It's just such a change, and so thank the applicant for complying.
Well, that was the question I was
Without
gonna
discussion.
raise, that it's recommended to continue it. But usually we continue it because there's a map and scale problem or a form
I
problem.
was thinking about this while we were having our discussion. I think a good percentage of our discussion had to do with the demo.
Yeah.
And getting our head around the demo of both structures. We only came to the HARC guidelines really in the second half of that conversation. And therefore, I think it would probably be prudent to see it again. And at that point, we've moved past the demo and we can actually consider the structures fully.
But, what is it that we want, to Bob's point, we don't have any math and scale.
Well, I mean,
The rest
there's-
of these are yes, no, either they do or they don't.
So that's fine as well.
I mean, if you'll trust me to get with Kristen and not create more backlog here, I think we could, I mean, I have total confidence. Yes, no, yes, no.
Yeah.
On all these.
Well, I think the new ones that we've added, you
It-
could still review them with staff.
I don't need to see it again.
All right, well,
There's
I'll,
Specific requests. You said 812, so I either come back with the
I
812
know.
or not, so it's.
so if you'll trust the process, I think
Yeah.
we could approve it actually, and, there's no words like significant or anything
Good.
else to be vague about, so mine are a 0 or 1.
And Mark, perhaps we can modify condition number 6, which speaks about the materials, and add our request to and lower the masonry cladding to a traditional height.
Oh, that's 14, or, well, if you want to make it in there, I'm sorry.
We can sneak it in
I don't,
condition number 6.
I would do it separate.
yeah, I would too.
Let's make that 14, and it was a very good point you brought up, but to lower the stone wall to
Yeah.
be more traditional per HR 23A and HR 20.
Yes.
But thank you for bringing that up, so.
Just before we move along, on condition 10, we're saying reuse the accessory structure materials per, there's no,
First of all, say exterior,
Exterior materials.
exterior, and AS2, A and B, and AS4,
wait a minute, AS2,
A and B,
A and B,
and AS4A.
AS4A. Okay, since I think you want me to read this, so.
You good, Sherry?
Yep, I'm good.
No, it looks like the sun's shining through your window down there, whatever.
I don't think so. It's dark here.
All right, still snowing.
Is
All right,
that
we have 14 conditions. Are we ready,
ready?
sir?
Okay, I'll give it a shot. Let me take a drink first.
Have another.
You don't know what I got in there. I'm just kidding. It's water. Okay. I move to approve with conditions the small scale demolition and new construction at 116 East Columbia Street based on the memo dated February 18th, 2026 with the following conditions. 1 through 8 as written.
About 7.
7.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got two sets here.
6.
I got them written on two different
Let's
pages.
start over, Bob, for.
Okay. I move to continue to the March, oh, yeah, screw. I move to approve the small scale demolition and new construction at 116 East Columbia Street based on a memo dated February 18th, 2026 with following conditions. 1 through 6 as written. Condition 7, change the word remove to revise the double gable end windows located above the folding doors on the rear elevation to comply with HR 25, intro HR 25C, HR 25C1, and HR 25D. Condition 8 as written, condition 9 as written, condition 10 revise completely to say reuse the exterior accessory structure materials, reuse the exterior accessory structure materials per AS2, A and B, and AS4A. We have additional condition 11, revise the roof slope and increase to be a minimum of 8 and 12 per HR 19A.3. 12, on the accessory structure, remove the alley facing deck per AS 4 and step down with a shed roof to the south alley per AS 3A and A4. 13, reduce the number of windows on the accessory structure per AS 2C and lower the height of the stone base to floor level.
This is number 14.
Oh, sorry, 14, yes. Lower the height of the stone base to floor level per 20, AS 20 and AS 23A. This motion is based on evidence testimony provided at a public hearing held on February 18th, with notice of such hearing provided as required by the Telluride Land Use Code. Revised plans incorporating the conditions of approval shall be submitted within 60 days of this approval, or this approval becomes null and void unless otherwise indicated. The revised drawings submitted for a certificate of appropriateness must be a complete set with any changes to the drawings clouded and labeled. Any change of the drawings beyond the conditions of approval may result in more than one submittal being required.
Matt will second.
Okay,
Stacy, yes.
Matt, yes.
Mark, yes,
Bob, yes.
Andrew, yes.
unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good job. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, before I introduce the next project, two projects, myself and Stacy and Andrew accused for proximity business relationships with the applicant and or the
Lower the height of the stone
So,
base.
if it's okay with the board, that leaves 4 of you. Sherry and present board members, I would like to recommend that, and we can, nobody is prepared to decide if they want to be another vice president or vice chair or whatever, second vice chair. I would like to recommend that the person on the most years on the board, Matt Lee, take over these last two projects as we all leave, if the board is okay with that.
I'm okay with that.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
Have
I
fun.
have a question. You mentioned earlier that you needed 5 for the demolition.
I will clarify that when we come into that public hearing, and I will give you guidance on the vote you need based on the recusals.
Oh.
You'll need 4.
Are there any staff announcements or anything else? Are you guys coming back or are we done after these two?
I think we're done after these 2. And I wonder if we should take a 3-minute break just to reposition. No.
I'll reposition. All right. And where she wants to move something.
We are recording, everybody.
Okay, I'm gonna introduce this project.
Are we
It-
going to vote first on you?
Yes.
Okay, who would like to make a nomination to chair this meeting?
I move that Matt Lee chairs the meeting this evening, April 18th, whatever, or excuse me.
But we don't need.
Yeah, didn't vote.
Yeah,
Take a
we'll,
vote.
we'll take a vote. We'll start with Sherry.
She's not unmuted. Hold on.
Did you hear, Sherry?
Yes, I did. Sherry, yes.
Bob, yes.
Elitza, yes.
Okay, thank you. I will introduce the project and please staff, interrupt me if I'm missing something or getting something wrong. So the project title is 238 North Pine, address, well, TBD lot 18A. The summary is consideration of an application for a small-scale demolition of a non-rated THAS primary structure per Land Use Code 7-203A 3B6 and a small-scale new construction that will contain 950 square feet or more floor area, but not more than 2,500 square feet of floor area inside the THLD per Land Use Code 7-203A1B1. Legal description is Lot 18, Block 28, Telluride. Address is 238 North Pine Street. Zone district is historical residential. The owner is 238 North Pine Street, LLC, a Colorado limited liability company. Applicant is Alpine Planning. Chris Hawkins, staff member is Kristen Clothier, Historic Preservation and Planning Director.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt. And now we have one disclosure from a member of HARC.
Yes, this is Bob Mather. I visited the site with Kristen, I believe last spring or last summer during a period of time when we were considering my coming to work for the town. I don't feel that visit, I don't barely remember it. I don't feel that visit would have any impact on my judgment today.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So at this point in time, following the disclosure, other HARC members or anyone in the public can ask a question of Bob if you would like. Again, it was a time where we thought about Bob consulting for the town, but then Bob opted to stay on the HARC board. So there was this little in-between time, and that's when that site visit occurred. If HARC has no objection, Bob will stay on. But first, does anyone have any questions of Bob before you decide whether he can stay on and be a voting member for this project?
I do not.
Nope.
Either.
Okay. Great. And members of the public, are there any questions for Bob before we move forward?
Any raised hands online, Piper?
Great. So seeing none, if HARC has no objection, you'll have to decide if you have an objection. Please vote to allow him to stay on.
I would vote to have Bob stay on.
Second that.
Sherry, yes, agree.
Thank you so much. Great. All set. And now you can move forward, Matt.
Okay.
And that's calling me to speak.
Yes.
So hang on one moment. All right. So hang on one second. All right, here we go. Sorry, that took a minute technologically. So again, for this review and the subsequent review, I covered a number of the review elements of various aspects of this project per the design guidelines and the land use code. But separately, our consultant, John Southard, historic preservation consultant from Logan Simpson, completed the review of certain aspects of the design guidelines. And so we are each going to cover the parts of the review that we focused on in bringing this presentation forward. So here we are. Matt, thank you for going over the background here. So the project description is a request for demolition of a primary structure, non-contributing without qualifications, construction of a new 1,987 square foot excluding basement level primary structure, single-family residence, and construction of a new 492.8 square foot accessory building on a proposed newly created Lot 18A pending concurrent subdivision approval. And I'll get into that further in a moment. So site significance and context. The property contains the non-contributing without qualifications primary structure on the half of the lot that is proposed to become Lot 18A. So this project will be going before the Planning and Zoning Commission next week at the next P&Z chair meeting for the subdivision approval. So here's the background. We have a existing single-family dwelling and accessory shed on the full property at 238 North Pine. As I mentioned, applicants proposing small-scale demolition of the primary structure, non-contributing without qualifications, subdivision of the property to create two new single-family lots, which are Lot 18A and Lot 18B as proposed. The concurrent subdivision applications on the agenda for 226 for P&Z chair. And then on this half of the lot, which is 18A, that would be created if the subdivision is approved, the applicant is just dealing with the demolition. On the other half of the lot 18B that we will get to following this public hearing, there's going to be a repositioning of the contributing historic shed to the rear of the lot with the proposed adaptive reuse of the shed to have an office and bedroom in the historic portion and a new garage foundation below and access from the alley. And then construction of two new single-family residences fronting on Pine Street and one new accessory structure with both the historic and new accessory structures positioned to the rear of the two new lots facing the alley. So I am just going to cover the demolition one time because it applies to one lot, but you will hear two public hearings, one for each of the to-be divided lots regarding the built environment, what is proposed to be constructed subsequently. So this is the demolition for everything right now. So the Telluride Historic and Architectural Survey indicates that the primary structure was constructed on the property between 1886 and 1890. Two homes are shown on the property on the Sanborn maps beginning in 1890 and continuing through 1893, 1899, 1904, and 1908. And by 1922, there's just one primary structure that remains. The THAS notes that the primary structure was substantially remodeled and altered in the years prior to 1987. I want to compliment the applicant. They've done a very thorough historic research and report that was included in your packet, and I'm sure they will provide even further detail on those aspects during their presentation. So I'm just hitting on the high level here. The applicant proposes to reestablish the historic development pattern for the property as shown on the 1908 Sanborn map. The proposal would allow for the construction of two smaller homes and one accessory building and the adaptive reuse of a historic shed. So as I mentioned, they submitted a narrative, a detailed packet, which you have in your HARC packet. They reviewed the historical record, visited the property with staff to evaluate whether the proposed demolition would meet the criteria as outlined in Land Use Code Section 7306. So the development team opened up walls and ceiling areas of the home and conducted two separate inspections with town staff. And while some smaller areas of historic framing were observed, it was determined that there is very little historic fabric remaining and that there have been numerous irreversible alterations, additions after the period of significance. So I will remind you, as I stated earlier in the previous public hearing, that Land Use Code Section 2326 defines a non-contributing without qualification structure as a structure that does not contribute to the historic character of the district, except for the structure's mass, scale, and relationship to adjacent properties, and which has been altered to such an extent that historic information is not interpretable and restoration may not be possible. So there are criteria established in Section 7306B of the Land Use Code, and you must find that all 5 criteria as stated in 7306A5 to A9 are met in order to approve a demolition. So I'm not going to read each of those, but I will give you the staff analysis briefly. For A5, The staff analysis is that the proposed demolition of the primary structure non-contributing without qualifications will not substantially diminish or compromise the historical integrity and/or architectural character of the area. The primary structure has been altered significantly over time. Its mass, scale, and relationship to adjacent properties is no longer representative of the historic or architectural character of the area. There's very little historic fabric that remains due to renovation subsequent to the period of significance, and many historic elements have been replaced, and additions remodeling have changed the primary structure significantly in ways that are irreversible. For A6, the staff analysis is that the primary structure is inconsistent with a number of the current design guidelines for the historic residential treatment area. The primary structure is also non-conforming in terms of the historic residential zone district dimensional standards, as past home alterations and additions now encroach into the East Galena Ave right-of-way. With the proposed redevelopment of the two proposed lots, 18A and Lot 18B, the applicant's intention is to reestablish the historic development pattern as shown on the 1908 Sanborn map, with two homes facing onto Pine Street. The two new primary structures and new accessory structure, once deemed compliant with the design guidelines through your HARC review process, will add to the architectural character of the neighborhood, and two new single-family residences will also be land use code compliant, and there will no longer be an encroachment into the right-of-way. For A7, staff analysis is that the contributing accessory structure will be repositioned along the alley on the proposed Lot 18B, and an appropriate adaptive reuse is proposed. Staff would recommend that the proposed new accessory structure on the proposed Lot 18A be reduced in height and/or not extend beyond the contributing accessory structure towards the alley to ensure that the new accessory structure is subordinate to the contributing structure. And I will go over that again in a further analysis later in this presentation. The proposed development will mitigate impacts to surrounding properties by reestablishing the historic development pattern of the neighborhood, and the new structures, once revised through the HARC review process, will be of appropriate mass and scale within the context of the neighborhood and serve to improve the overall streetscape. For A8, the demolition proposal mitigates to the greatest extent practical any impact on the architectural character of the contributing accessory shed. And thoughtful rehabilitation, adaptive reuse of the historic shed is proposed with a repositioning to the alley, and the demolition of the primary structure combined with the post-demolition redevelopment plan for Lot 18A and Lot 18B mitigates impacts to the rated accessory shed. And finally, A9, which is the last criteria that you need to find is met to approve a demolition. Staff analysis is that the applicant has agreed to redevelop the property per the submitted plans currently being reviewed by HARC. The proposed redevelopment of the proposed two lots, once brought into full compliance with the design guidelines, will be compatible with and enhance the architectural character of the immediate area, the neighborhood, and the historic residential treatment area, again, recreating the historic development pattern of 1908. So this is just for the demolition. In terms of the staff recommendation, we suggest that HARC consider approving demolition of the primary structure based on the criteria for demolition of a non-contributing without qualification structure having been met with the following conditions. Demolitions contingent upon the applicant obtaining approval for the proposed subdivision of the property into two lots, again being heard by the HARC chair next week. The demolition is contingent upon the applicant obtaining HARC certificates of appropriateness for redevelopment of the two newly created lots, 18A and 18B. The applicant shall enter into development agreement with the town to ensure said redevelopment. And if during the demolition process, additional historic elements beyond what were able to be observed in the preliminary assessment are uncovered, the owner will be required to stop the demolition, contact town staff, and discuss next steps. Finally, applicant must provide a plan for salvage reuse of any remaining historic material. So those are included in your proposed motion, and that is it for the demolition piece of this presentation, which again applies to both projects. Moving on quickly to the design guidelines. You know the overall precepts, historic residential, alley, shed, and secondary structures, and exterior and site lighting design guidelines apply to Lot 18A as proposed. Now I'm going to ask John Southard to jump in because he covered the review of the historic residential treatment area design guidelines and standards, and he will cover this aspect of the presentation for you. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Kristen. And Chair Lee, members of the commission reviewed this using the historic residential design guidelines, found that there were 2 areas, 5 separate guidelines grouped into 2 different areas with which this proposal is not compliant. I will first cover the area where we have insufficient information, that is historic residential design guideline number 26, doors. The doors depicted on various sheets do not include details pertaining to whether they exceed 2/3 lights. As such, it is unclear if they comport with HR number 26A.6. So again, insufficient information to determine compliance with HR number 26. Design guidelines, we determined this to not comply with, are again grouped into 2 areas, that being vegetation. So design guidelines number 2, natural resources, and number 14, plant materials. Per sheet A0.9 and A1.1, all existing trees to include a 4-inch caliper tree, a 10-inch caliper tree, a 12-inch caliper tree, and a 26-inch caliper tree are to be removed. Proposed replacements include grass, perennial shrubs, and 6 aspen trees of unknown caliper. Given that design guideline number 2 calls for projects to protect existing vegetation during construction, and design guideline number 14 calls for projects to maintain established plantings in place when feasible, or if absolutely necessary, relocate them within the site. This project is not compatible with design guidelines number 2 and 14. The second grouping of design guidelines with which this is not compatible are 1, 5, and 7. 1 being relationship to site context, 5 being pedestrian scale, 1, 5, and 17 being mass and scale. These all relate to the massing that we see here on the side elevation. I believe this would be on Galena. What we're looking at, I believe, is the view from corner of Galena and Pine Street. Relationship to site context, 1A.2 calls for compatibility with the traditional mass scale of the area. Number 5 calls for pedestrian scale, that is visual interest on all facades and elevations that will be seen from streets, alleys, and pedestrian ways. 5B.1 calls for the building to step down in scale to the street and alley by using elements such as decks, porches, bays, and balconies. And 17, that being mass and scale, calls for breaking up the massing of larger buildings into components, that is 17B, and 17D.2 calls for stepping down the mass of larger buildings to minimize the perceived scale at the street. Here we do have a shift in the vertical plane. It is seen about 2/3 of the way back. It shifts 18 inches in. There is a difference in roof height, as I've been told, of 2 feet 4 inches. That said, this appears to be an imposing and largely unarticulated wall spanning the majority of the East Galena Avenue frontage, and staff does not believe it to comport with historic residential design guidelines 1, 5, or 17. As relates to exterior and site lighting guidelines, it partially complies with 1, that is exterior lighting, in the sense that it does reference timers and sensors. However, there's not information relating to whether or not fixtures will emit light rays above the horizontal plane. So that is an area where additional information is needed, as is exterior and site lighting number 2, the interior lighting, as neither the plan set nor the project narrative clearly depict or specify details related to interior lighting placement, fixtures, or other such information. Kristen, would you like to address the alley shed and secondary structures?
Yes, thank you so much, John. So I did the review for the alley shed and secondary structures, design guidelines, in terms of site planning, staff analysis here. So the site planning, the guideline is design parking areas to be accessed from alleys or rear drives rather than from the street. So staff analysis, although the accessory building, which includes an enclosed garage, is detached and situated along the alley consistent with 1D1, the garage door opening fronts onto East Galena Ave instead of the alley. The applicant, in meetings and discussions we've had, has indicated that due to the steepness of the slope along the alley and turning radius, and a challenging turning radius, an entrance to the garage would not be possible in this site-specific instance from the alley. HARC needs to determine whether, in this instance, approval is appropriate for a garage fronting on West Galena Ave for this corner lot. So I listed this as needing further discussion, given the unique situation of this property and the steepness of the slope along the alley. For mass scale and form for the alley shed and secondary structures, you can see the guidelines there. The staff analysis is that the new accessory structure proposed for Lot 18A is slightly larger than the historic contributing shed on the adjacent Lot 18B, pending subdivision approval, and is positioned uphill along the alley from the contributing accessory structure. It also extends further towards the alley on the east elevation than the historic shed. So the height of the new accessory structure on the proposed Lot 18A could be slightly reduced, and/or the setback from the alley could be increased, and/or the new accessory structure could step down to the alley to ensure that the new accessory structure does not overpower and diminish the contributing accessory structure as viewed from East Galena Ave and from the alley. And I think this is really important. We have a contributing structure, and it really does not feel that the new structure is subordinate to it. And so understanding there is a steep slope, but there are some adjustments that can be made to ensure that that contributing structure really has, really is prominent along the alley. So not compliant with design guidelines. So those are basically the summary of design guidelines review. Again, pending project approval by HARC, building planning public works staff have identified items that will need resolution prior to building permit issuance that should not impede your review this evening. And I list some of them here, which are will be discussed further with the applicant after the HARC review process. And then you have a proposed motion. Again, it has been refined from what was included in the packet, and so will be a supplemental document added to the document center for the public, which just simplifies some of the language for that motion. I'm not going to go over it here, but we're happy to answer any questions. And I know the applicant has a lot to share as well.
I have a question, Kristen.
Sure. How can I help you, Sherry?
This relates to the historic structure. I know it's a rated structure. Just curious, does something like, in your professional opinion, raising the structure and putting a garage below it, does that pose any threat to its designation, or is that something generally that is copacetic in that regard?
No, I think, and John and I can both speak to that if you'd like, but I did wrestle with that, I will say, in reviewing this project. It is an adaptive reuse. They are obviously preserving it. They're maintaining the grade. I went through all of the criteria for how we can adaptively reuse, but still maintain that contributing rating. And it seemed like the way they are proposing it would be appropriate. If they were proposing, I don't want to get into hypotheticals. There are instances where that would not be the case, but I did feel that where they were moving with this project seemed appropriate in this instance. And John, you can jump in as well to speak to that if you'd like to.
Thank you, Kristen. Yes, Commissioner Gourlay, the research that was completed by the applicant was very helpful here. I concur with Kristen's conclusion that this is an appropriate treatment given the need to relocate the structure.
Right, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Kristen, could I ask you, give us a quick sort of summary of, your understanding from, the legal department? Because we have so many recusals, we're down to 4 voting members instead of the 5. Can you just give us a quick summary?
Absolutely. Thank you for reminding me to do that. So because we had 3 recusals, the way this works, and I can actually, if you'd like, perhaps after the applicant speaks, if you need me to refer to the specific sections of the code that support this, but where we are left is that you will need 4 affirmative votes from the 4 of you in order to approve a demolition, whereas when you had 5, the full board plus your 2 alternates, you needed the 5 affirmative votes. So you have 4 out of 4 affirmative to approve a demolition with this size group with 3 recusals.
If hypothetically the project is continued, it's
Yes.
not an issue.
If it is continued, it will still be an issue because the same 3 recusals will still be in
Okay.
place. So nothing will change between this time or next time. It's going to be 4 of 4 irregardless.
Any other questions, staff? Okay, we'll hear from the applicant.
Thank you. Chris Hawkins with Alpine Planning. And Tommy, hi. So, good evening. Thanks for hearing this. Appreciate all of John and Kristen's work on this, and the interest in this project. Kristen mentioned this, the goal is really to recreate that historic development pattern. This is the 1908 Sanborn map that shows 2 single-family dwellings on a lot. Pretty common back in the day to do this. Property boundaries didn't mean anything, so this really was the inspiration for taking a look at this. And according to the town's historic survey, this single-family dwelling was moved to the back, and that's shown in the 1922 Sanborn map. So that's kind of the premise we're working on for this. Sorry. Having computer logged up. This is the proposed subdivision. We will be requesting that this be continued to the April meeting because we had the pre-application meetings and we've made it real clear all along. We'd like the HARC to review this and guide the design before the Planning and Zoning Commission chair takes a look at the minor subdivision. That's appropriate. And so we're patient and I'll submit that request in writing overall, but this shows the 2 compliant lots. Again, what we're trying to do is this 2 smaller lot design rather than what we could come in with is just 1 home on this lot, a larger home. You saw a similar home like this at 234 North Spruce that I was involved with, and professionally, I think it's better to propose 2 homes here than 1 home. That's just my opinion. Understand we need to address mass and scale and other design considerations. You've already seen this in terms of the non-rated structure, which is the non-contributing without qualifications, and the rated structure, which is supporting. Existing conditions are important here, as with everything back in the day when it was built. And our best guess on when the major kind of renovation took place was sometime in the 1950s or 1960s. When the property was purchased, it was back in 1974, those alterations were already done. And the current owner actually shared that information with us. So that's very helpful. But there's a encroachment into the right of way on this side. You can see it here with the home. And then here's the shed as well. And here's the tree, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. I did want to point out the steep slopes. This is, roughly, I'm assuming these are 1 foot contours. So you've got 1, 2, 3, about 6 feet of grade change between kind of ground level there today in the alley. And I'll show that to you in a photo. And that's really what's prompting the proposal to keep the current kind of curb cut and put the driveway up here overall. And there's also the fact that, and you'll see this in the plans, the garage, the backing movements. This alley is really tight, as all alleys, but the backing movements out of the garage are somewhat hampered by utilities here and the proximity of the home on that lot as well too. Pictures of the current home, you've probably all seen this. Here's the encroaching road. And then the, supporting structure in the back as well. Here's the grade change. It's kind of hidden by a vine, but you can see an old rubble kind of wall back there in the back right now. And so I'm not going to go through the definitions of non-contributor with qualifications. You've had that 3 or 4 times tonight. It's a non-rated structure. And so in terms of the 1922 map, I already talked about that. And so what we know, the home was substantially remodeled prior to 1987, sometime in the 1950s or 60s. And when we looked at it, there are no historic siding, windows, roofing. There's this new expanded addition. The floor joists are not historic. The foundation is not historic. The ceiling joists and ceiling rafters are not historic. And the chimney is not historic. What Kristen's right, we did open up the walls in several locations. Not a fun thing to do, both in the ceiling and floors, and looked in it. And what we found is there's very little, if any, historic framing. This is something I do when I do historic evaluations. I take a property survey and then I overlay the Sanborn map. This is really approximate. I always have to say that, but yellow is kind of the Sanborn map, and then brown is the new survey. And you can see how the older home just got basically enveloped by this. And it's our opinion that most of the home was demolished with this addition. And that was more or less confirmed by our site visit. So we think that the home is eligible for demolition. This is really based on the current rating of the home, and as well as, discussing this with town staff. It was a very cooperative effort trying to work through this. That was done, I believe, as part of the initial diligence. This shows the outline of the current home relative to our proposal. And you can see the 2 lots and the extent of the overlap and why the demolition is on both projects. And we don't have to talk about the demolition next time. We can just say, you've already heard this testimony, hopefully, and don't have to repeat. But you can see we're proposing a slight repositioning of this, supporting structure in this direction. That again, it's already been relocated in the past. And so that's part of the proposal that's documented in the narrative, both the horizontal and vertical, and the adaptive reuse. I appreciate the comments on that and trying to reuse these alley structures. I think it's a great incentive for their preservation. The site plan itself, I just wanted to show this a little bit. There's a lot.
Chris, can I interrupt you real quick? Could you expand on the prior relocation of that?
Yeah, sometime between 1908 and 1922. I don't have that image up. You saw the 1908 map. It got moved from the front to the back.
Okay.
This is why I don't like the person that picked 1913 as a period of significance, because we don't have a Sanborn map that tells us what happened. So there's this gray area.
Are you saying that the shed in the back was the building that was up?
That's what's stated in the town's historic survey. I think that's, I question that a little bit, but I'm not, because the dimensions are off a little, but.
Could you go back to that?
Sure.
Just, I hate to interrupt you. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the difference. I mean, it's kind of close modules, you can see. So it was close enough in these Sanborn maps that the difference between the years, and the structures don't change. It's just the surveyors and accuracy. They change on a yearly basis. So,
So between 1908 and 1922, it's moved from.
It's moved. Okay. Yeah, to the back. So it's not in its historical location, to the best information. You can't find historic photos of this side of town very accurately. The only one I got was in the narrative looking up Galena, and you could see the home, kind of the gable form, but it showed the structure in the back, and it looked like it was already moved, but it was after, I think it was in the 1930s when that photo was taken, something like that.
Thank you.
So the site plan itself, in terms of breaking up the mass, I just want to talk about it from a site plan level, then Tommy's going to talk about the design. But John talked about the wall articulation. Again, this was something we know we have to do here. And so this is where you both have an articulation on the front porch side at a pedestrian level with the covered roof, and then the upper level deck. And you've got the articulation here, the yard in between. I know we have stairs coming down in that kind of adds a little bit to that, and then the accessory structure, I'll let Tommy talk more about it, but the site plan itself, it shows the window wells for the basement, hot tub, the yard, the separation between primary and accessory that's being proposed. The streetscape today and what's proposed, again, this home that's at 226 North Pine, that's one of Tommy's designs that we took through like 4 years ago, I think, roughly. Big home on a big lot, and that is not what anybody wants to do. This proposal that is here, and actually Ben Jackson is going to speak a little bit. He represents the LLC. We did a similar project over here on First Street, the two houses kind of just right across behind Town Hall, where there's an older home on it, larger home that was demolished, and we subdivided it and put two smaller homes on it. Again, it's the what was called Citizen Petition 300. Now it's been absorbed into the code. That whole petition was about creating more housing or not creating more housing, keeping housing in the community and not allowing for lot line vacations. That was the main impetus for it. And it was scale and mass too, two things. And so we think we're in the spirit of that, even though it's not subject to it or anything like that. It's just something to think about more than anything. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Tommy and to talk about design.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chris. And can we share? Fly around?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll stop sharing my screen then. So this is Trevor Martin back here with Tommy's team too,
Trevor's with,
for the record.
yeah. Are these the images or the model? Okay, let's start on Pine. Go north. So how's everybody doing tonight?
Yeah, we understand we'll have to take screenshots and get this to you based on our prior
Thank
experience.
you. I was just about to
We'll get
send
it.
you an email.
So let's go south.
You've been here before.
Yeah. So what we have now, or what we've done is we've taken a point cloud. We have now probably the whole town on a point cloud survey. So when we start these projects now, we look at how do these new structures relate to the context as a whole. So we're not only looking at the grid, but we're looking at how do they relate as a whole. And so you can see that some of these larger houses we've done on Pine, they do step down and they do meet the guidelines and they work. I think going to these smaller structures on these sites, they do many things. I would, the mass and scale, because these are only 19-foot wide structures, it's already diminutive to begin with. We've got these standard lots. So the width of the houses is already, very, very narrow. But if you can move up Pine, we are proposing getting rid of that large spruce.
We can talk about that with 280.
Okay, we'll talk about it with 280.
Don't.
So on 290 to be specific, so what we've done is you can see the relationship of 290 to the projects across the street. And along Galena, there are a series of these replats that were done that throw the grid off so that, across the street on Galena, you have south facing lots, which create a much squarer architecture along that street. And it's a little, I think it's very awkward. Garrett's house too on the alley that we'll get to. But if you want to go up higher, Trev. So what you can see by creating this rhythm of gables on this 290, what we've done is we've really employed every method that we've done over the years to create, you have a primary gable form, that's the widest form. that sits in the center of the mass. We have another gable that steps down to Pine. That is pushed also to the south. We have a deck element that wraps around the corner. We've moved the entry to the corner to address the corner itself. And then we've stepped the mass down into another subordinate gable structure at the rear. So I'm having a little bit of a hard time. It seemed a bit harsh, to be honest with you, on how this massing was being described, because this is a strategy that has been successful throughout town for many years. And it clarifies the central volume, and then you have these additive elements that step down the perimeter. Additionally, what we did is if you move along the Galena, the other thing to remember about Galena here is the traveled way is significantly further away than the property line. So you've got about 20 feet in between the lot line and the traveled way. So what we're going to propose, which isn't in these applications yet, is that we request from Public Works that we're able to plant out this right of way with a series of aspens, maybe even spruce, that really alleviates a lot of these massing concerns. And we have some precedents too that will show. And you can see the houses across the street are really much larger than what we're proposing on Galena. You know, we've gestured to that north-south grid with one gable dormer to the north, which I felt fit in with the streetscape. And when we're designing 290 as a good example, we're not only looking at the streetscape, we're looking at the entire context with these point clouds. And we're saying, what are the forms that we can add to this context that are complementary, that recall the historic nature with the gables and the sheds, and that work as a composition with the whole town. We're not just looking at just this lot, we're looking at how does this lot interact with the town around it. I think that's an important element.
While you're still here, could you
Yeah.
go back to the Pine and Galena corner and turn off the trees?
Mm-hmm.
And turn off the old house.
Yeah.
We can. Oh. Yeah, it's the old house, so you can see the difference. What we're trying to illustrate is how much further set back we are than the existing house. You know, it's an additional.
And can you zoom in?
6 feet.
If you can get rid of that, but if you can zoom into that corner where the deck is going on the second level to the door.
This area, Bob?
Yeah. And then turn it back to more on Galena.
Okay.
No,
Oh,
the
more
other
on
way, other way.
North. Yeah. Yeah, we've wrapped that porch around, Bob. So we've grabbed and engaged with the primary gable.
But it looks like the deck goes past where you've done that door.
Yeah,
But it doesn't, I don't think that's on the plans that way.
it is. Yeah, it is. It's the railing kind of gesturing and reaching past the facade so that it engages almost looks like an enclosed porch at that corner where that door is. We've used this strategy before. It kind of extends the look of the porch element and it breaks up the facade. I mean, to me, this facade is very broken up. I mean, you've got the massing, it steps down at each end. You've got the additional shed element on the north. You've lowered the plate. The plate, I think, comes down to 4.5 or 5 feet at the east. And then you've got this bandboard continuation from the deck that breaks the facade into a lower level and an upper level. And, you know, there are other strategies with materials and with stone. What we didn't want to do is we didn't want to raise the stone to the sill height, which we have done, because it distorts that historic feel of the base
Okay.
and the wall.
I get it now. That last two panels for the deck, the deck railing are just basically decorative up against the wall of the house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was good. Where the hell is that?
No.
Okay, got it.
But it engages. I mean, I think it's a good strategy. So we'll move around. Let's move around to the secondary structure. So right now, Stiff, his driveway has been, well, it's been there, I mean, since we have any photographic record. But his driveway goes from Galena, and it's just a very natural, obvious spot to enter the site. There's a retaining wall on the left there. Garrett's house to the left here is a really large structure, fairly, very non-compliant, I'd say, that sits on the alley. He's got his parking structure there. There's utilities. We studied coming into this alley and entering from the east. And this seemed like a very obvious location for the garage access, right next to the alley. It's at the back of the site, right across the street. The Hopes have their 2-car garage right across the street, a little bit further towards Pine. So this seemed like a very simple, elegant solution. And where we didn't have to mess with the alley for this particular parcel. And then this shed, to me, when I look at it, if you want to go up high, Trev, and just show the context, I don't really see that there's an issue here. I mean, this is, again, a strategy that we've used before where the livable space above this garage is probably about half of that shed. We've got a big overhang with brackets that recalls kind of those old structures along the alleys, the old sheds. And I think contextually, what we have across the alley as a primary structure, I don't see any issue with this strategy for this particular site in this shed. Well,
Do you want to show the massing relationship between the contributing?
I go around the alley.
and so when you're coming up the alley, I guess it's all relative, right? I mean, as you come up the alley, the way we've positioned the historic shed, if you can go south, Trev, to the Waldrops. No, on the alley. This will be in the 280, but since we're talking about it. Can you get it there? Yeah. I will come back to this area. I mean, the point I wanted to make about, well, we'll go south first. Well, I'll say too, it was interesting designing these because I actually designed the house with Ron Berkovitz next door to this, from like
100 years ago.
1994, and then I did the Waldrops 5 years ago. And to me, from this facade, or from this, as you're walking up the alley, I think the relationship to grade is completely preserved for the contributing shed, the gable portion. We've tucked this garage underneath. We were very creative about the way we tied in the existing foundation with these earth roofs, these planters that step down. And I don't know if you want to move that way, Trev.
Turn off the fuzz.
Yeah, it's actually still.
Oh. So we're going down slightly we're trying to preserve the height of that historic shed as it relates currently to the alley. Even though we're putting the garage, the relationship to the alley is the same. I guess we need to put some of our permit fees towards a better internet here at town.
500 megabits per second if we do it.
What, can you tell us what the elevation change from the, where you put where the new garage, the 290 garage and the alley in relationship as well to the historic structure garage?
We have an alleyscape we can lay. Well, can we move that way, John? Or it's just not working?
I think it's on one of their elevations.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go through the elevations again too.
Okay.
with this.
But-
We just wanted to show you the model.
It's about. It's on grade, the garage is on grade, Bob.
Yeah.
And so, it varies, right? It slopes down, so it's probably 4 to 6 feet.
Let's talk about it in the next app.
Okay, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, and,
Yeah,
you know,
Well, yeah,
okay.
I want to talk about it on the 290.
and I just
that's
brought
okay.
it up because it's the height of this accessory building relative to the contributing structure. So appreciate the conversation on it.
Mhm.
So we can't move up. Sure has. Oh, well, I thought this would work really well. It's like the heaviest. It's the internet connection. Oh, so you're right. Well, not even streams.
Well, it'll pop up. We can come back to that if you want. We can move on with the.
If your regular drawings, if you got the elevations and
We
stuff,
do.
that'll
We're
be
gonna go
fine.
Through those, so I'll,
Okay.
Trevor, if you want to stop sharing, I'll share again.
Yeah, well, you get the idea. You get the idea. And,
Thank you
and I
for-
did want to show, I think it's important to look at the context across Galena as well, when you're looking at this. Okay.
So I'm not gonna be redundant here and move through these. Ben Jackson just wanted to briefly talk about corner lots and design real quick, so.
Ben Jackson, developer. Thanks everyone for their time.
Yeah.
Dan, will you go up to the podium?
Ben Jackson, one of the developers. Thanks everyone for their time tonight. This morning, I pretty much walked through every block in the historic residential zone district and noticed a couple of these homes that sit on some of the more prominent corners that were homes built on single lots. And as Tommy pointed out, you'll see a lot of these homes are very lineal on the 50 to, or 80 to 100 feet length they are. And as you go through these, Chris, that's Tony Wilcox's home on Oak and Columbia. A really good example is the one on the corner of Columbia and Alder. Keep going.
There's Colombian spruce, and then there's this one.
That one right there. The Public Works, I guess, even allowed steps, but this is one with trees planted in the right of way, like Tommy has shown on this. On top of the way he's just explained how we've split up the massing along that north property line. When you put the aspen trees in, and I'm not adverse to even planting some evergreens. So in the winter, it continues to offer that massing. But, this is, 6 out of about 12 examples. But what was really interesting is walking through the historic residential, I noticed that each block at least had one of these smaller homes on the corner, except for the specific block. So to stay with the historic variation, it's nice to have the smaller home on at least one of these, at least on one of the corners of the blocks in the historic residential. And this specific block doesn't have a 19-foot wide home on it yet. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say.
Thanks, Ben.
So the material palette on these, stone veneer overall. You've got also too, the little bit of board form concrete, some vertical siding, metal roofs, glass. If you have any questions on that, just to address John's comments, all the doors will be 2/3 light. We'll fix the notations for the next review. This just shows the elevation as if you're at the accessory building looking back. Again, we're going to show this just because it does show all the stepping in elements, just kind of from a different view angle. And this is looking back towards the accessory building. Again, this is just kind of reverse of what you're looking at from the alley looking in here. And then this is also showing the massing, overall in the stepping where you do see the change in elevation where this is actually at a, you know, kind of a lower finished grade already and pushed down somewhat, so. And this is where the south elevation.
Oh, yeah, that's, well, I think they get the.
Yeah, so as far as the conditions, we're gonna add conditions 4 and 5 as plan notes. Since technically, in a demolition, you don't have a rehabilitation plan. But we'll make sure those are on there, and then ideally they don't have to be conditions, but understand these are just standard conditions for any demolition. Condition 6, that I'm gonna talk more about with 280 overall, so, yeah. With that, do you have anything else to add, Tommy?
No, that.
Can I add one
that's a
thing
good
real
one.
quick?
Oh, sure.
I just, as part of the application team, I do just want to not remind, but just reinforce that one of our guiding principles is to keep it simple. And we did throughout the design process, work on that north elevation. We tried to add as many elements as we could to break it up, the wraparound porch, the low roof element, the 18-inch step back. At some point, all of those moves, though, start to be not simple. So we were trying to strike a balance there. One other thing that Chris alluded to real quickly, but we did really early on and with discussion with staff, consider a subdivision that had an east, a 50-foot wide east lot and a 50-foot wide west lot. That speaks more to across Galena perhaps and some other development along Galena. We felt that, like Tommy said, that would lead to more square boxy type homes, and we felt that sticking with the more linear lot was more in keeping with restoration of the town grid.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, if you had any specific questions about the plans themselves, I've got them up on the screen or answer.
Could you do show the I don't know if it's a section or the elevation facing south? So the elevation that's along Galena.
The elevation along
The north.
Yes, the north elevation, excuse me. Yeah, no,
yeah, sorry.
that one. Oop, you were there.
Okay, there you go.
I'm just looking, you're putting a basement structure underneath that garage. And I just want to make sure I understand this, the level of that, the floor of that lower space out there is well below the alley itself, correct?
Yeah, it's probably 4 feet below the alley,
Okay.
half level. But we've done that. We do that all the time.
No, I understand that. I've had in my head the idea of could you come in from the alley on there, and the more I see and hear, it seems like it's going to be extremely difficult and probably wouldn't work anyway. But we'll talk about that amongst ourselves up here.
Yeah, it would be an awkward half level basically.
Let's see, do I have my notes here? Yeah, I think we can move on. If you have any questions.
So I've got 2 things I want you to be able to expand upon before we go into deliberation. So one of the items I was gonna ask about was explain a little bit more your logic behind not using the alley for access to the garage. The second thing I wanted to bring up is you're requesting that the northern side yard setback, you're requesting a variance from 5 feet to 3 feet there. So can you explain your rationale for that request?
You want to touch on
well,
first one first?
Well, we can talk about, we can both.
My question.
technically,
Yeah.
we didn't think there was an issue with the north setback because we were improving a situation where the existing house is actually on the town property. So by, requesting the 3 feet, we're still improving a nonconformity by, I think, 5 or 6 feet. So that felt like a reasonable approach. And also the 3 foot, we're only requesting it on that primary gable form. We're stepping back at both the street, and then we're stepping in 1.5 foot to a 4.5 foot setback at the rear. And then we're going out just a little bit for the garage.
And it's also because that streetscape, it's almost 26 feet from this wall plane to the edge of the traveled way. And so we thought that was a good way to do that overall. We understand we're creating a lot and, you have to approve the setback. We completely get that. But for this context, we felt it was appropriate for 25-foot wide lots where I've seen this around the town in the past. I've seen situations where the town has granted variances to those, or parks approved lesser setbacks because it's, a 19-foot wide lot versus then, it's really small if it's a normal 25-foot wide lot. But contextually between the existing conditions and the design, it's what it came down to for that. And then on I think the site plan view shows it tighter, that are better for the backing movements of the garage.
Yeah, frankly, it was, there's a pragmatism to the existing driveway that Stiff has there now. And we thought it'd be better just to keep that curb cut that's there now, narrow it up, create more green space around it, and not deal with, backing up and dealing with, going down a half level or something across, right? Because Garrett's front door is right there across the alley. So we thought preserving kind of that retaining wall and preserving that entrance to the alley made more sense. By turning the garage to, Matt, it actually allows you to have more space, more yard space between the primary and the secondary as well.
It's a 7-foot wide travelway.
Huh?
And that alley is tight. I lived at the little house down here when I first came to town in 2005, a little alley structure.
And
it was
easy,
impossible for vehicles to move back there in the winter when it was a lot up with all the snow storage and everything else. It's super tight.
but it does ease up as you go down, and that's why it works for the historic next door. It's just that little section where it dives down. I hope that answers that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Jerry?
Nope.
Open up public comment now. Did everyone get a chance to read the public comment letter that was submitted?
Yes.
Yes.
We'll start with public comment in the room. Does anyone have comment? Step up to the mic, introduce yourself. Remind you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, regarding that letter, I mean, that's a lot of points that were made, and I don't know if everything was addressed here. Did you guys see this letter from the neighbors?
We just confirmed we did.
Could you
Okay.
state your name, please?
Oh, Jeff Hope. We lived across Galena, 111 East Galena. Let's see. I thought it addressed, but issues like skylights, the tree, I don't know when that's gonna get discussed. Some additional things I had were of course, the mass of that wall, which we've all been talking about. That deck that wraps around, it's an additional foot width, and it just, I guess it's breaking up that wall, but it seems like it's a detail I'm not crazy about, but it also seems like it's past the building. The deck then is wider than the actual building. I don't know if that's okay. Concerned about make sure the lighting is addressed, interior and exterior, and where they're proposing planting all these trees, that is a snow storage area that is very utilized by the town. I don't know how the town would feel about giving that up to plant trees. I like the idea of some, if of any trees, aspens, not spruce, because those are just, they are gonna get large and be a problem in 20 years or 30 years. Not my problem, but somebody's. And a hot tub, just make sure it's screened and hopefully not too much light emitted from it and noise. I mean, those hot tub areas quite often get speakers, and I don't know if that's something that HARC can address. No, okay. I don't know who does, but
All the caps.
I guess that's the main points. Yeah. The skylight thing, I don't know, it doesn't affect us so much, but there are 3 skylights facing south. My understanding that only 2 allowed per building. And I guess that's it.
Ed, thank you for your public comment. Any more public comment in the room? Please step up to the podium and state your name. Got 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Sam Siegel. I do live on about a block away, on the same block below. Just a couple of things to take note. There's a lot of historic houses in every direction from this house. There's also a lot of newer structures have gone in the last 15 or 20 years. And they all do a pretty good job of supporting the architectural character of the neighborhood. That house proposed here on 18A, I have problems with both the north and the west elevations, that they do not reflect the elements or the character of the neighborhood and don't really contribute to the architectural character. What concerns me in particular is the large upper level deck that is on 2 sides. It's both on the east and the north, which if you stand on that corner and as far as you can see, you do not see that element anywhere, let alone there's an upper deck across the street that doesn't wrap around. It's not a historic home. It certainly does exist. The supporting posts, whether they're 4x4s or 6x6s, it just looks awkward to me. I'm not an architect, but it just doesn't feel like it fits. The front door on that level, on that house, is pretty much at street level. I don't know if there's 1 or 2 steps up. But again, if you look around in that historic neighborhood, that doesn't feel like a common element or the architectural character of that neighborhood in any direction. There was a lot of views shown looking at this house, looking to the east and looking to Galena. There were no views shown in tonight's presentation that look across the street to the historic houses that are on the other side of the street, or across the street kitty corner to where Shambaugh's house is, or up the street. So if you stand on that corner and do a 360, these elements of this house do not seem to fit the character of the neighborhood. And finally, even though Jeff Hope said he'd be fine with aspen trees, someone who has probably more aspen trees in their yard than anybody in the town. And they are a problem if you live there long enough. And you can look at these houses and you look at these elevations, you look at these perspectives, and you look across from the north, from the houses like where Hope's is, and you look across and you go, oh, they'll still have views of Bear Creek. Well, not if you plant aspen trees there. I would like to see the town in general, this project as well, restrict trees to trees that do not grow taller than the houses. If houses grew taller and taller every year.
We're winding down on your 3 minutes, so
Okay.
we're gonna wrap it up.
Yeah, so that's my point. I think HARC should take an approach to landscaping that does not, in the future, encroach on their neighborhood.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any more public comment in the room? Piper, do we have any public online? If we have public online, please raise your hand electronically.
Yes, we have Scott Halstead, and I'm going to ask him to unmute.
Great. Thanks very much. Scott Holstead, 329 North Pine. Very short comment, which echoes the ones that Jeff Hope and the previous speaker made about landscaping. Plenty's been said about the house. I'm not going to contribute there. But I think having any trees taller than the house is going to block a lot of views. And I don't know what HARC's ability is, but to impact that. Because the existing landscape design doesn't call out any species or anything that you can sort of get your head around on the actual design. So I'd like to see a condition that they can't have any trees that are reasonably expected to be higher than the house. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Piper, any more public comment online?
There are no other hands raised.
Okay,
Oh, I've got a new hand.
all right.
Art Waldrop. I'm gonna ask him to, he must be connected via phone number.
That's what happens.
You may have to dial whatever it is to unmute. Star nine.
Hello,
Okay, good.
can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you. Will you
Hi,
state-
hi, this is Art Waldrop. I'm at 226 North Pine, next door to this house. The plans look fine to me, but I would like to make a comment about the height. So when Tommy designed this house for next door for us, my family, 5 years ago, lots of discussion about the height of the house. And we ended up, and we never asked for a variance. We ended up having to reduce the height of our house 3 feet. And Steph was one of the main complaints about that. And we were 5 feet off. We were 10 feet off his lot, except for about 12 feet, of which were 5 feet 4 inches. And my concern would be the height of the house, if they go to the full 25 feet, will look disproportionate and sort of be too much massing on the rest of the street. I know we haven't talked about the height yet. That's my comment.
Thank you.
Thanks, Art.
Piper, any more public comment?
I see no other hands raised.
Kristen?
Sure. I just wanted to add in a couple of additional staff comments and a little guidance to HARC. In terms of the corner lot, this being the corner lot that we're talking about, staff were very concerned, especially for this lot 18A. Because it's a corner lot, we gave a lot of input to the applicant, concerns about stepping back from the north side. Thinking about those setbacks, I just want to bring you back to the fact that corner lots, this is per the land use code, the way it reads is 5-foot setbacks on the corner lots. It may be reduced to greater than or equal to a 3-foot setback, right, by HARC, but HARC must determine that important resources or site features are being preserved, such as historic structures or context, preservation of mature vegetation, or avoidance of steep slopes, and that reducing the setbacks results in an overall development plan that is in greater compliance with the applicable review criteria. I did include that in the memo, but just wanted to kind of mention that as you're having that consideration, because I do think all of the guidelines as well point to that greater sensitivity with the corner lots, and that stepping back, that piece was a great concern to staff, and we did, have a good conversation with the applicant, but we're kind of looking at it a little bit differently in that regard. So thank you for letting me bring us back to that.
Would you like to respond to the public
Just really
comment?
quickly, I'm just getting this out of the narrative regarding the side yard setback. We're requesting HARC reduce the side yard setback for the proposed corner for 290 North Pine from 5 feet to 3 feet, 3 inches pursuant to the allowance in 3205C5. because we deserve to preserve the site features of having a home approximately 26 feet from Galena Avenue right away and create the historic development pattern and context for the property as shown on the 1908 map. Without that side yard setback reduction, we can't recreate that pattern. And without that side yard setback, if that was strictly applied, this home becomes pretty unfunctional from a buildability perspective. So it's really important to get that as part of it. While a new home must meet the required setbacks, we believe it's important to construct the home as close as possible to the northern property line to maintain the character of Galena Avenue, with the home located approximately 26 feet away from the edge of the pavement. It's an exceptionally wide green buffer that does not have any envisioned improvements for the town's streetscape master plan. Another unique site feature is the historic development pattern of the two homes, which we've already mentioned that, and disallowing it. So I just wanted to give a little bit more context that was in the narrative on that, because it is an important consideration and it really makes or breaks this project based on, I believe, our team conversations. Because if it was strictly applied, would lose what, 2 feet, 2 feet.
17-foot wide on.
Yeah, so thank you for bringing it up, and it is important, and understand that we do need to address the massing concerns of HARC on this sensitive location. Thank you.
Thanks. Any response to any public comment?
No, we appreciate the public
Okay.
comments. Thank you.
All right, well, I'll open this up to deliberation.
Not gonna start this time. I'm worn up.
Alicia?
Let me see. Okay, sure, I'll start. You know, you guys typically start with going through the conditions. And hold on a second, there are too many notes here.
Take your time.
Thank you. Okay, conditions 1 through 5, pretty clear stated. Actually, do we need to talk about demolition first, Matt? Then conditions or setbacks? There's a lot to cover.
There's a lot to cover. I think we can talk about,
Wonder how we,
I guess we can talk about demolition first.
Why don't I do that?
Yeah.
yeah, that's,
What are your views on the demolition?
then I would not like to start.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Okay, I'll start. I don't see a compelling reason why the applicant would not be able to demolish the primary structure.
I don't either. And we got a lot of detail tonight
Yeah.
about it, that it's not there
Yes, I agree.
historically anymore.
Yeah, I agree as well. I don't see an issue with the demolition.
No problem for me as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we've got demolition taken care of.
Done.
1 through 4 is done.
We can jump around to whatever topics you want. And if you're not ready, we can jump to Shirley and see what she has to say.
I'm really curious about that setback and understanding that the project cannot happen as proposed if the setback is 5 feet without our intervention. And I wonder if the give and take here is actually reducing that deck in the front entry and going over the corner. For me, this adds a lot of added volume and mass to the entry, and I see an issue with pedestrian scale as well. So I think that if we were to allow the 5-foot setback, definitely that deck should be reduced. And the porch should be addressed as well as an architectural element.
The width of the house, rather than wrapping around.
Yeah, I think not the width of the house, but I think that the deck needs to shrink and not go around the corner.
Yeah.
The deck it wraps around is which normally we require it to be 12 inches or so inset from the corners.
Yeah.
A porch or a deck.
I believe it needs to be reduced in width.
You're talking about the entry deck and the deck up above?
I'm talking about the deck on the second floor that is covering the entry porch.
Okay. I think in this case, the entry porch and the second level deck are one and the same, right? We're talking about the same.
Yeah, both of them go around the corner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then go around.
Yeah, I couldn't understand it. I couldn't figure it out until looking at it. I go, why is this? Is this an error in the drawings or what? Why is this going past the wall? I just don't see it as something that we could keep.
Yeah, I have some comments on the deck as well. I think if you look at HR 21 and HR 21A, so it does refer to just reading the language, projecting elements such as dormers, bays, stairs, chimneys, and cornices. Doesn't specifically say decks, but it is a projecting element. Help to provide visual interest and can influence perceived scale. These features should be compatible in size, shape, and type with those found in historic buildings and should be treated as an integral part of the building design. 21A says building components should be similar in scale to those used historically. So my feeling about the upper level deck is that that is not a historic element. And so I actually would propose eliminating that upper level deck.
So it's saying you would then suggest that it just become a porch with a roof?
Right, yeah.
That makes sense.
Well, to chime in here, I think that the deck and porch should not wrap the corner of the building. I understand what the applicant was trying to do architecturally to help break up that mass. But I think it should be held back 12 inches from each corner of the building as we have required in other projects in the HR. I hadn't considered eliminating the upper level deck. I personally think it feels appropriate with the mass and scale of this project. And it's, remember, this is not meant to be a recreation of an historic structure. It's meant to mimic not mimic, it's meant to be indicative of its own place and time. So I think for me personally, having them pull the deck back off the corner, but allowing them to have the porch and the upper level deck is appropriate.
I agree. I agree.
Bob?
Yes.
Let's jump back to what's probably the elephant in the room here is the 5-foot setback versus 3-foot setback. I understand the hardship it would create to the applicant to move to a 5-foot setback, but I don't see any rationale within design guidelines to allow the variance to a 3-foot setback. And if you look up and down Galena in the vicinity, almost all of those houses are aligned historically in new houses with what would be a 5-foot setback. So I'd like to get everyone's opinion on that before we move forward with other things to consider.
Yeah, I think there's some language in the land use code 3-205C4D and E. It does seem like it's incumbent upon the applicant to describe how reducing the corner lot setback results in an overall development plan that's in greater compliance with the applicable review criteria. I don't know if that's threshold has been met. So in order to get the variance from the 3-foot to the 5-foot, or from the 5-foot to the 3-foot setback.
That's exactly what he's saying, and you prefer to stay at 5 feet.
Right. Yeah.
Bob, what are your thoughts?
I'm kind of torn about that, but I think that the 5-foot makes sense. Given the location and giving some more sight lines down Galena. views. We're losing a huge, since it's a double lot with one house on it with a wing, we're losing that south portion of the land views, through it to the mountains and other parts of town. And I looked up about views, and it talks about maintaining views, but it also says views through private property are not insured or protected. So I don't know that we could demand a bigger setback between the two houses.
I don't recall a situation where we required a larger setback, especially a side yard for views, for private views through private property. So I don't think I would support a condition.
Yeah, I just look at it from what was there and what's there now, and you're losing a certain amount of view toward the end of the canyon and all that. So I don't know that we can push that one.
Okay,
but just throw it out there.
Alicia, what are your thoughts on 3 feet versus 5 feet?
Man, that's a tough one for sure. Because if the rule is 5 feet, then it's 5 feet. And I don't see how the applicant is giving us a reason based on the land use code requirements to reduce it. So go to 5 feet.
Okay, sounds like we're all in agreement with that. With the porch and the deck, we've kind of, I think we've said, I've said at least to pull it off the edge, still allow an upper level balcony. Jerry's suggesting that the balcony be eliminated and become a porch roof. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't see a problem with a deck whatsoever, but I believe that it should be held back from the core and not wrap around the corner. Basically, should be held back.
Okay.
And if the setback is followed up as 5 feet, well, when the massing will change anyways. Yeah.
We've had several projects that
Yeah, I'm finishing.
come in, and if you look at A 2.1, the second floor, it has the deck is held back on the south, but it wraps around the side of the kitchen to the scully, and then continues as a decorative element, I'll call it, around the side. It's a little bit awkward there because there's no reason to come around the corner there's no door there.
Well, below is the entry door. So
The entry door. Yeah. So something going over there. A roof, or I don't know. I've seen it I think we've seen it a few times on other projects, but it just always seems odd to me that that deck is coming around the corner like that. And I could live with it if it's held back from the corner, 12 inches on the scully wall, and just have that little spot there for whatever it is, or they could look at that and maybe just take it all the way across. I'm not going to tell them how to design it, but I think that they ought to look at that.
Okay, I think we're all in agreement here. At least 3 of us are.
Yeah, I think I could agree with it not having the wraparound feature, but being more of a standalone deck in the front, the west elevation.
Alicia, do you want to keep going Bob, do you want me to jump in? Happy to.
What else you got?
Okay. Give me a
Putting you on
second,
the spot.
please. Um,
And let's try to stay with the bigger pieces first and then move to the smaller.
right. Okay. Well, let's talk about condition number 7. I think that's another big one. And we're still on that north elevation. So it seems the right time to talk about this. I actually do not agree with condition number 7. I think that what the applicant has done is enough to break that plane, and especially with the 5-foot setback, that would bring the house would push the house further south. So with that in mind, I would say no on condition 7.
7.
And that's a big one.
Yeah, you've got the small gable at the front, you got the main body, steps in just past the dining room to overlooking the drawings. You have the dormers and that piece there, and then the transition to the secondary structure. I don't know. When you look at an elevation, you kind of go, yeah, it's there's a lot going on there, but if this was changed, the deck thing in the front, I think they've got it broken up pretty well.
They do.
Yeah. I agree. I would strike condition number 7. I think it's an appropriate amount of stepping and articulation in the roof. And I think if we ask for more, it will get unnecessarily complicated and it'll lead to some simplicity.
Exactly.
Sherry, do you have any thoughts on number 7?
Yeah, I think as far as articulation and building materials, it does look like they go from a horizontal
vertical.
Yeah, to vertical, which I think helps. I guess one question which sort of is related is with respect to the dormers. Let's see which element is that. Maybe sheet A3.3, possibly.
Sherry, A2-1 will show the roof plan.
Yeah, I wanted to also.
Are you looking for the elevation?
Yeah, 3.3.
All right, so A3.3. I think with the dormers, possibly what looks a little off to me is the different shapes of those 2 dormers, and particularly with the dormer that's further to the east with the 3 windows, and then the shed roof, that seems to be a little less of a historical looking dormer. And so I might suggest a discussion about maybe making the 2 dormers appear more similar, specifically revising the dormer that's further to the east to have an appearance that's a bit closer to the appearance of the dormer that's slightly to the west. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I would say that, again, we're not trying to ask the applicant to recreate a historic structure. So the differentiation between the dormers is appropriate. And you could read the back piece as sort of a addition to the main body. And I think it's appropriate for them to be different. So I would not ask the applicant to change the shape or size of the dormers.
I agree. They're changing the siding direction horizontal to vertical. So it does kind of read as another element. I'm okay with it.
I thought about those dormers as well. And I like the change in height. I think that helps break that facade and brings interest. What I was wondering about in terms of the dormers is whether they're a little bit too big, especially that east dormer for 19 point B. Oh, And in combination with the size of the windows, I think that's a larger element that should be on that broken plane. So I was wondering what you guys think.
I have, jumping ahead, I have just an overall comment that the glazing seems to be overscale in this house,
Mhm.
both in windows and doors. And I
Okay.
think it needs to be significantly reduced. Essentially, their proportions are great, but they're
Mhm.
just very large.
Yep.
So I have a condition to reduce the scale of the glazing throughout the house.
Mhm.
But I do feel that these dormers are quite proportionate to the rest of the massing, and these are not large walls.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's a balance, right? If they reduce
Right.
the glazing,
Yeah.
that would help the
It-
appearance of the dormer.
To me, both of these dormers seem to be very balanced on the elevation and the massing.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna jump in here. There's a couple of, I still think, larger things to consider before we dive into things like glazing and dormer sizes.
Okay.
Give me a second here. There was a comment in the public comment letter about requiring the decks and porches to be within the 15-foot setback. And I agree with that comment. Looking at the neighborhood and the scale, the setbacks that are existing, the only one that strikes me as an oddity is the new house next door, who also has this larger deck or porch into the setback. So I would suggest that the 15-foot setback be required on the deck and the porch as well.
Yep.
That's a significant change.
Both the front and the rear. Isn't it?
Sorry, was that
Both the front and the rear.
front and rear?
The rear deck that's off the shed, off the secondary structure.
Who think, are you talking about?
I'm only talking about the front yard setback.
Oh, okay, the
Yeah.
front yard. Okay.
And I'm going to make the same comment on lot 18B. That I feel that both of these projects should be pushed further off of Pine Street.
Ah. Okay. I know the house next door, there was a drawing that showed that the house next door to the face of the house is 16 feet. It's only a foot difference, but it does have that big element in the front that goes almost to the street.
Almost to the street.
Yeah.
And if you look at the other houses in the neighborhood, and especially on that street, they're
Mhm.
substantially off of Pine Street.
I agree with that.
So we would say that the whole porch and deck be behind the 15-foot
Yes.
line.
Jerry, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree with that for especially for the lot A. Since it's at the corner, it gives better visibility as you're coming up around the corner and down around the corner as well. I think as far as the land use code, section 2-229, referring to setbacks, does talk about open decks and open porches are permitted to encroach into the setback. That said, I think in the context of the neighborhood and whatnot, especially for the corner lot, I think a 15-foot setback is appropriate, and maybe on the we haven't gotten to the lot B structure yet, but at the very least, sort of, if we did do a 15-foot setback to the porch on lot A, to maybe somehow interpolate between that setback and the setback of the property to the south of lot B is a possibility as well.
Okay. Okay, I've got one other, I think, sort of large thing to discuss. It's the access to the parking. So I don't see a reason why the parking cannot be accessed from the alley. They're doing it on the adjacent structure. And if turning radiuses are an issue, the garage face and the alley structure could be set further in.
I wrote a condition about that as well. That's why I was asking about the relationship of the lower level to the driveway. And you've got, I think you still gotta have 4 or 5 feet, 3 to 4 feet. If you come off the alley, you're gonna have to go down or further back to do it. Pushing it back would be one of the answers to deal with that.
Yes. I think in addition to making that change, it will inherently lower that structure. So per staff's condition about lowering the accessory structure to make the historic structure more subordinate, I think it will inherently lower that structure. And if they do decide that they need to push it back for access into the garage, it will further expose the historic structure to Galena into the public way.
Seems
So I
like
think
it
there's
also would be possible to have the garage at the ground level and still have the livable space below it. I don't know if that would be a possibility as well, but it seems like that might be a less.
Not accessing from the alley.
You,
That
you
won't
wouldn't be
work.
able to go up because you got to keep the alley.
Gotta go up like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't see how that would work, but
I'd like to see them look at that and see if, what are the, if you really draw it.
to me, it's proven out on lot B that it works.
Yeah, but that is further down.
Yeah, but if you look at the alley gradings, it's about a 2-foot difference between that point and lot B, and it's the alley gradings also. So between the lot and the alley, they mirror each other. And that wall seems to be a 4 or 5 foot tall rubble wall. It doesn't seem like it's an insurmountable task to modify the grading there so that they can access.
However, if they create a parking that is not usable, we just have one more unusable garage space in town that just exists on paper. And I wonder if, there's like space for a study for the driveway, or I don't know,
Ask them to take a look at it and prove to us. I
Yeah,
mean, we're gonna continue this. There's a lot of stuff.
means that they would have to push the garage further, like away from the alley.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's the case because they're not doing that with the lot B.
They mentioned it's a 7-foot wide, just 7-foot wide usable driveway. So like, I really would hate to see another unusable garage in town.
Seems like it'd be better to push it a bit to the west anyhow, just to allow better viewing of the historical structure behind it.
So I'm not sure if this is a condition or like, I would like to see a better study of that and to try to make that alley.
I would like to make it a condition that the parking be accessed from the alley and they can figure out how to do it. It's my suggestion.
I wrote one just like that.
What does yours say?
It says relocate the garage entry to the alley and step down the accessory structure to the east. And I have a whole row of
citations.
I
would agree with that. Leetia, no.
Okay. I'm okay.
Jerry, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I had contemplated that also, and they do talk about not making additional curb cuts and whatnot. So I think relocating the garage access to the alley would be actually a benefit. I think that would be a good
And I want to add that I feel they can still do parking off of Galena and parking paving strips and still have garage area and a parking if they want 2 parking spaces. So this wouldn't penalize them, the parking.
Oh, if they moved it down south towards.
They could still have essentially the curb cut. They could still have parking strips and still have 2 parking spaces on this lot. One's in the garage and one's not.
Very good point.
Okay. Do you have any other ones? I have a few additional
Let
conditions to discuss.
me look at my notes here.
We're not doing.
I have, we'll go ahead and do yours, Bob, and then I'll jump back to mine.
Okay, by putting, if we have the garage there, there's an opportunity to not have to have a very tall wall. I think they could step the walls on the alley side, stone, just step it back so you're not doing a 6-foot straight up. Reduce the rear deck on the primary structure per HR 13C and HR 21. Obscure the hot tub from the view on Galena per HR 2, HR 13, HR 20A, and HR 21. And reduce the number of skylights per HR 25F and F.1. And plus adjust condition 11 as I just.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Oh, I'm sorry. Where do you want me to start over again?
Just the skylights.
Okay. 15 would be reduce the skylights, reduce the number of skylights for HR 25F and F.1.
Okay, I had a note also about screening the hot tub, so I'm in agreement with that. I'm in agreement with the skylight reduction. What we're really talking about is going from 3 skylights to 2 skylights. And then essentially your other one was stepping the retaining wall, the alley retaining wall back. But if we are requiring driveway access or garage access from that, they're going to inherently do that, right?
Gonna have to.
Yeah. So do you want to maintain that as a condition, or do you want to just let them hear what you had to say?
I think we could keep it as a condition.
Okay.
And then the other one was the rear deck on the house.
Rear deck.
Which covers.
And what
most of the
language
chairs.
would you like to use there?
HR 13C.
But just as far as how much to reduce it, or just you saying just reduce, you
reduce
saying
it.
significantly? No.
It's it's going to change because the garage is going to turn. It's going to be longer east to west. And so they have to take a look at that whole space in the middle.
Okay.
It's going to have to be rethought of.
Okay. So you're not worried about being specific at this point?
No.
Okay. I'm in agreement with all of those. Alicia?
Elitza.
Sorry, Elisa. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, except for the condition for the stepping, the rear retaining wall. I think that as the driveway, that the parking gets resolved, that I'm wondering what they'll come up with as well. And who knows, maybe it will get resolved, but
Well, if it's left in there and they resolve it,
Yeah.
then it's no longer,
Let's-
it's
yeah,
a
let's leave
resolved
it.
condition. So
let's leave it, yeah.
I think it does guard against not having a 6-foot bare wall in between 2 garage patrons, you know.
Yeah. And we could say provide a stepped stone retaining wall.
How about just stepped retaining wall?
Okay.
Because I think materiality wise, they were showing stone, they're showing board form concrete. I think there's board form concrete already on that alley. I think either one could be
Yeah,
appropriate.
there's a lot there to work with.
And Sherry?
If she has any more.
Yeah, Sherry, do you have any comments on Bob's suggestions?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Bob's suggestions. I also have a couple other kind of related. So I'd like to maybe discuss the stairs connecting the primary and secondary structures. I know HR 21 contemplates the use of stairs to provide visual interest, etc. But I think in my view, these stairs between the structures are not compatible in size, shape, and type with those found in historic buildings, and they're not an integral part of the building design either. So I would propose a condition to eliminate the elevated stairs connecting the primary and secondary structures as per HR intro and HR 21 and HR 21A. Curious what to think about that. They're also going to be highly visible, I think, from the.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you, and I would add also open space, which is HS 10. I think they reduce the open space. So I'm in agreement with that.
Could you read that slowly for me?
Yeah, my proposed condition is eliminate the elevated stairs connecting the primary and secondary structures as per HR intro, HR 21, HR 21A, and HR 10. Is that what you said, Elitza, regarding open space?
Hold on. And HR 10.
Okay, could you read those, just the items again?
Yeah.
Eliminate the stair between the structures per
HR intro, HR 21,
H 21,
HR 21A, and HR 10.
21A, and what was the last one?
HR 10.
HR 10. Okay.
Other than, do you want to discuss that, or you want me to?
Go ahead. Sorry, what did you say, Sherry?
Yeah, I had a couple of other things to
Yeah,
mention.
go ahead.
Let's see. Okay, so regarding the accessory building again. First of all, just referring to AS2A2, which states new construction along alleys should be similar in scale, character, and location to existing alley structures. An AS4 features such as porches, bays, balconies typically were not found on alley structures. Let's see, I have the accessory structure, eliminate the connector stair and landing on the west elevation as per AS4. I think they're going to be doing quite a different design possibly for the accessory structure. So I don't necessarily putting in new condition now. That could be something maybe we handled it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Let's see what they come back with.
Yep.
It's a significant change we'll be asking them to do.
Yeah. Also just relating and comment to the applicant. So the new accessory structure, I think, overpowers the historic shed on lot B. AS 3.3 new sheds should be similar in height to sheds seen traditionally in the area. The accessory building height currently is at 8816, 9 3/8 inches in comparison with the accessory structure on lot B, which is at 8812, 10.5 inches. So it's about 4 feet higher than the historic structure. And so I think that the revised structure should be significantly reduced as far as its maximum height to be equal to, or at least proportionally, possibly higher or slightly lower than the historic accessory structure on lot B.
So I can give you what I had. This is condition 11. reduce the height of the new accessory structure. I'd eliminate, increase the setback from the alley. They're gonna have to do that anyway. And step down the accessory structure toward the east alley per, and I've got a whole list here. And, well, wait a minute. Let me redo that. 11, relocate the garage entry to the alley. And step down the accessory structure toward the east alley per HR 16B and B1, AS 2A2, AS 3A, 3A, 3A3, 3A.3, 3A.4, 3B.3, and 3B.4. And maybe we want to revise that introductory part of it. If we want to talk about reducing the height as well, keep that in there. So it would be relocate the garage entry to the alley, reduce the height of the new accessory structure. Should we increase the setback from the alley? Just leave it in?
I would leave it up to them.
Okay, yeah, so we'll eliminate that, step the structure down toward the alley per all of these.
Yeah.
Conditions.
I think that covers the alley shed to me.
Okay.
For the accessory structure. Sherry, did you have anything else?
I do not.
I've got two more things. We'll circle back to glazing. So I'd add a condition to say significantly reduce the glazing throughout the primary structure by reducing the size of the windows and doors while maintaining the historic vertical proportions per HR 25 and 26.
Okay, you said that too fast.
I'll
just give it to me.
And then
I'm going to do this.
Okay, more of a housekeeping item. Number 6 talks about retaining and protecting or retaining the existing vegetation. In my look of the site, there's really not anything significant on what will be this new lot. It's really about maintaining that spruce tree. And the applicant does provide a site plan, a landscape plan. So I think I would strike condition number 6.
Keep it in on the other building.
Put it in on the other one.
Okay.
Agreed.
Agreed.
And what did we say about condition 7? I
Strike condition number 7.
Okay. That's out too. Okay.
So does anyone else have any other conditions or want to discuss any of these conditions?
I'm good.
So Bob, I think we can do this 2 ways. I have my conditions written out. I can give them to you. You can make the motion, or I can start the motion. You can do a whole bunch of friendly amendments.
We don't want to do that.
Okay. Give me a second here to highlight what I've got for you.
You can write better than I can.
These are my new conditions. These are all new conditions, and I'm saying conditions 1 through 5 is stated, strike 6, strike 7. So however you want to renumber these, but those are all the ones. And you can ignore everything that's not in that box.
Okay. Now those are duplicates of mine?
I don't believe so.
Glazing.
Nope, they shouldn't be.
Why is the project accepted? I got that one. Okay. And we're gonna have 25 of these things. Okay, so I'm going to give these numbers.
Take your time.
This is 17, 18, 19, 20. And I already got the screen, the hot tub in there. Okay. I think I can do it. Everybody ready?
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay, I got on 3 pieces of paper here, so it's gonna be some.
Help us out, Piper.
What do you need?
Well, just if you see us mess up, just.
Just speak up. Bob.
Okay, I'll keep it right here. How's that?
That's excellent.
Okay, I can read this stuff, glasses. Okay. I move to continue to the April 15th, 2026 HARC meeting, the small scale demolition and new construction at 238 North Pine Street, proposed lot 18A, based on the memo dated February 18th, 2026, with the following conditions. 1 through 5 as written. Delete condition 6 and 7. Condition 8, 9, and 10 as written. Revise condition 11 to say relocate the garage entry to the alley, comma, reduce the height of the new accessory structure, and step down the accessory structure toward the east alley per HR 16B and B1, AS2A2, AS3A, AS3A3, AS3A4, AS3B3, and AS 3B.4. Plus, we eliminated the stepped wall, right?
That's up to you.
Okay.
Fine either way.
I think we'll keep it in there. Number 12, provide a stepped retaining wall adjacent to the garage on the alley per 15B3 and B5, 15C.1 and C.2. Number 13, reduce the rear deck on the primary structure per HR 13C and HR 21. Number 14, obscure the hot tub from view on Galena per HR2, HR13, HR20, point A, and HR21. 15, reduce the number of skylights per HR25F and F.1. 16, eliminate the stair between the structures per HR intro, HR21, HR21A, and HR10. And then other list. Number 17, increase the north side yard setback to 5 feet per LUC 3205.C.5D. Number 18, revise the western massing so the entirety of the second level deck is outside of the 15-foot yard setback per HR10, HR10A1, HR 13.A.1. 19, revise the northern portion of the western second level deck to inset a minimum of 12 inches from the corner of the structure per HR 21.D.3. And 20, significantly reduce the glazing throughout the primary structure by reducing the size of the windows and doors while maintaining historic vertical proportions per HR 25 and 26. This motion is based on evidence and testimony provided at a public hearing held on February 18th, 2026, with notice of such hearing provided as required by the Telluride Land Use Code.
Matt will second. Sherry, how do you vote?
Sherry, yes.
Matt, yes.
Bob, yes.
Elisa, yes.
Thank you. All right.
We got another one to do.
No.
Yeah.
Done. We're just gonna.
You guys can HARC guideline a project to where it, it may be.
Been done.
We're
done.
But we're not.
So
we don't
we're
need
not
to-
having public comment right now.
Oh, we're not. Okay. So
If we could respectfully continue the next item to the April meeting as well without discussion, because those changes change everything in the project, so, from the first one.
Okay.
Sure.
We'll magnify our hardship setback. I thought it was pretty clear. Y'all misunderstood anything.
Okay, Kristen, should I just read the title?
Yes, and then we will continue without discussion to a date certain, specifically the April 15th HARC meeting. And I can say that again once you've read that.
So, sorry, do I just introduce? So
Yes.
we're gonna introduce this next application.
Yes, and then we will continue without discussion.
And it's 238 North Pine, TBD Lot 18B, and we're going to continue it without discussion to the April 15th HARC meeting.
And who's making that motion?
I am making that motion.
I'll second.
Sherry, how do you vote?
Sherry, yes.
Matt, yes.
Bob, yes.
Lisa, yes.
Thank you. We'll see you in April.
Thank you.
Kristen, do we have any more discussion or?
Nope,
Okay.
we're all set for this evening. You
We'll
can adjourn.
adjourn the meeting at 9:07. Thank you all.